Nepal concludes National Assembly elections with 95.7% voter turnout across all provinces. Thousands of Nepalis protest over EPS job delays as 2023 roster nears expiry. Diplomatic talks underway. Nepal's primary stock market sees a significant rally with benchmark index rising by double digits. Myanmar elections concludes with pro-military party poised for landslide victory amid critics' concerns. U.S. federal immigration agents shoot dead 37-year-old Alex Pretty in Minneapolis. And Nepal women facing Scotland in decisive T20 qualifier tomorrow. Hopes of World Cup progress at stake. Good evening, I'm Vijata Bhandari and this is NTV World Primetime News, coming to you live from Kathmandu at 1900 hours Nepal time. Across the globe it is 1:15 p.m. in London, 10:15 p.m. in Tokyo and just after midnight in Sydney. Now the news in detail. Voting for Nepal's National Assembly elections concluded today across all 7 provincial capitals, with a reported turnout of 95.7% among the country's 2011 eligible Electoral College voters. The election was held for 17 of the 18 vacant upper house seats, while 1 seat in Koshi province under the Khas Arya category was filled unopposed by Nepali Congress candidate Sunil Bahadur Thapa. Voting took place at designated provincial offices and cultural centres, including Biratnagar, Janakpur, Hetauda, Pokhara, Ghorahi, Birendranagar and Dhangari, involving provincial assembly members, mayors, deputy mayors and rural municipality leaders. According to the Election Commission, 1,924 votes were cast nationwide and results will be announced after counting at the respective provincial offices. The Commission thanked political parties, candidates and stakeholders for ensuring a peaceful and smooth voting process. Today's high turnout reflects both enthusiasm and confidence in Nepal's democratic process as the country prepares to fill key positions in its federal parliament. Nepal's Election Commission has inaugurated a joint election operations centre to ensure smooth voting across the country. The centre, established at the Commission's office, was inaugurated by Acting Chief Election Commissioner Ram Prasad Bhandari, who said it will address any election-related issues that cannot be resolved at individual polling stations. The centre will be led by the Commission's Secretary and will include senior officials from the Ministry of Home Affairs, Nepal Army, Nepal Police, Armed Police Force, as well as the National Investigation Department. Its primary role is to provide immediate solutions to problems arising in any constituency during the elections. Acting Chief Commissioner Bhandari emphasized that the centre will strengthen coordination among security agencies and the election officials. The initiative reflects Nepal's efforts to ensure transparency, efficiency and security during the electoral process. Nepal now has 45 vacant seats at local and provincial assemblies, following a wave of resignations by officials running for the House of Representatives elections. The vacancies include 24 local chiefs and deputy chiefs, 21 provincial assembly members, as well as several national assembly members, including prominent leaders like Narayan Kaji Shrestha and Bamdev Gautam. Key resignations also came from mayors and deputy mayors, including Kathmandu Mayor Balan Shah, Bharatpur Mayor Renu Dahal and Dharan Mayor Harka Sampang Rai. The Election Commission has announced that by-elections will be held immediately after the House of Representatives polls to fill the vacant posts. These resignations follow a broader pattern, with ward chairpersons, ward members and provincial assembly members stepping down to contest federal elections. Nepal has a total of 753 local assemblies and 7 provincial assemblies, highlighting the scale of the electoral reshuffle and the complex election schedule the country now faces. Nepal's Prime Minister Sushila Karki has called for tackling the country's problems, anomalies and corruption through mutual cooperation and coordination. Speaking at the first convocation ceremony of Nepal Open University, Prime Minister Karki urged the graduating students to contribute to nation building by supporting employment generation and promoting production-oriented education. Prime Minister Karki emphasized that the need to prevent talent drain and adapt higher education to meet the changing needs of today's youth.
विश्वविद्यालयहरू विज्ञान तथा प्रविधिको द्रुततर रूपमा भएको विकासलाई समायोजन गर्दै अगाडि बढ्नुको विकल्प छैन। हाम्रा उच्च शिक्षा प्रदायक संस्थाहरू सबै अझै गतिशील हुन जरुरी छ। यस खुला विश्वविद्यालयले यो समयको गति र प्रभावलाई आत्मसात गर्ने विश्वव्यापी ज्ञान र रैखाने ज्ञानलाई समावेश गरी शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापलाई सञ्चालन गर्न सकोस्।
Time for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World Primetime News. Thousands of Nepalis who cleared all mandatory exams to work in South Korea under the Employment Permit System, or EPS, have taken to the streets again. This time they are demanding expediting the intake as the job roster from 2023 nears expiry. With limited quotas and rising uncertainty, the issue has now reached diplomatic levels. Sabika Shrestha looks further.
Thousands of Nepali job seekers aspiring to work in South Korea under the Employment Permit System (EPS) have once again taken to the streets. The reason is simple. These protesters are the batch of 2023 still awaiting selection, with the likelihood of their roster expiring soon. With the 2-year validity of the EPS roster nearing expiration, frustration and uncertainty have spilled onto the streets of Kathmandu and Lalitpur. More than 103,000 applicants from the 2023 EPS roster are still waiting for placement despite having cleared the Korean language test, skill assessment, medical examination and police verification. In contrast, South Korea recruits only around 5,300 Nepali workers at a time under the quota system, leaving a large majority stranded and fearful of losing their opportunity altogether.
सबै पीडित साथीहरूको रोस्टर अवधि सकिएकोले गर्दा पहिलो प्राथमिकता भनेको रोस्टर थप गरियोस् पीडितको र जति पनि हामी पीडित छौं यी पीडित विद्यार्थीहरूलाई चाहिँ पहिलो प्राथमिकतामा राखेर कोरिया पठाइयोस् र हाम्रो जति पनि रोजगारदाता समक्ष फाइलहरू पुर्याउन बन्द गरिएको छ यो फाइल
Nepal remains one of the largest contributors to South Korea's migrant workforce under EPS, accounting for around 17% of total workers sent. Since the system was introduced 18 years ago, nearly 121,000 Nepali workers have gone to South Korea, primarily under the E9 unskilled visa, working in manufacturing, agriculture, shipbuilding and related sectors. Monthly earnings typically start at around $2,000 depending on industry and overtime. Explaining the selection process, Director of the EPS Korea Section Nepal, Tikaram Thakal, clarified that Nepal has no role in final recruitment decisions.
After passing the language examination and after passing all the steps, we send them their job application to Korea via online system. Their file is sent to South Korea. Then we cannot do, Nepali side cannot do any more for their assurance in Korea, going Korea for their employment. This depends upon Korean company side, Korean side's company.
As pressure mounted, the government of Nepal acknowledged the concerns and initiated diplomatic and administrative measures. The Ministry of Labor, Employment and Social Security formed an investigation committee last month to explore solutions, including extending the roster validity and resending applicant profiles. A high-level Nepali delegation is also scheduled to visit South Korea next month to hold talks on increasing the current quota. As the deadline for the 2023 roster approaches, the EPS Korea issue has emerged as one of Nepal's most pressing migrant labor challenges, placing growing pressure on both the Nepali and South Korean governments.
Amid the ongoing outrageous protest by the job applicants and the assurance by Nepal government and HRD Korean department still raises a big question. Is Nepal government only trying to find solution for these problems and trying to send migrant workers to abroad? Or Nepal is also finding solution to create job opportunities within the home? This is a bigger question that everyone needs to focus on. Sabika Shrestha with camera person Rasila Shrestha reporting for NTV World.
Moving on, gold prices in Nepal hit record highs today, reflecting rising global demand and market trends. The price of 1 tola, approximately 11.66 grams of hallmark gold, rose by 2,400 rupees to reach 303,800 rupees, while silver increased by 290 rupees per tola to 6,480 rupees, according to the Federation of Nepal Gold and Silver Dealers Association. Compared to last Friday, gold was trading at 301,400 rupees and silver at 6,190 rupees per tola. On the international market, an ounce of gold is currently valued at 4,987 USD, while silver is trading at around $103 per ounce. This surge in gold and silver prices has significant implications for Nepali consumers, jewelers, and investors, highlighting the country's sensitivity to international market trends. Nepal Stock Exchange, or NEPSE, Nepal's primary stock market, saw a significant rally today, with the benchmark index rising by 57.55 points, or 2.12%, to reach 2,772.17. Trading activity was robust as nearly 39.9 million shares of 331 companies were exchanged in 133,529 transactions, generating a total turnover of approximately $105 million. All sectoral sub-indices, including finance, hydropower, and manufacturing, recorded gains, while 8 companies hit the positive circuit, marking the maximum allowable daily increase in share price. Leading the trading volume was Akukola Hydropower Company Limited, with shares worth 435 million rupees changing hands, reflecting strong investor interest in Nepal's growing energy sector. The upward trend indicates renewed optimism in Nepal's equity market, which plays a key role in financing the country's infrastructure and economic development. Moving on, leprosy continues to pose a serious public health challenge in Nepal in 2026, particularly in the Tarai region. Despite the country being declared leprosy-free in 2010, southern districts like Bara, Rautahat and Sarlahi are reporting high numbers, with over 2,400 new cases nationwide in the last fiscal year. Madhya province alone accounts for 37% of all patients, including women and children under 14. Western districts such as Kailali are also showing significant cases, highlighting that the disease is not confined to one region. Health experts warn that social stigma and lack of coordinated government action are key obstacles, and they call for thorough screening of patients' families and communities to prevent further spread. These trends cast doubt on Nepal's goal of eliminating leprosy by 2030, underscoring the urgent need for renewed public health efforts. Time now for another break. We shall be back with more from the international front. Voting concluded in Myanmar's month-long election today, with the dominant pro-military party on course for a landslide victory in a hunter-run poll critics say will only prolong the army's grip on power. The Southeast Asian nation has a long history of military rule, but the generals took a backseat for a decade of civilian-led reforms. That ended in a 2021 military coup when democratic figurehead Aung San Suu Kyi was detained. Civil war broke out and the country descended into a humanitarian crisis. The election's third and final phase closed after voting took place in dozens of constituencies across the country, just a week shy of the coup's 5-year anniversary. The military pledges the election will return power to the people, but with Aung San Suu Kyi sidelined and her hugely popular party dissolved, democracy advocates say that the ballot is stacked with military allies. U.S. federal immigration officers have shot and killed a man in Minneapolis, identified by local officials as 37-year-old Alex Pretty. The incident comes less than 3 weeks after Renee Good was shot dead by an immigration agent in the city. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says agents fired defensive shots after Pretty reacted violently, while Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says the account of events from federal authorities is nonsense and lies. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy calls for a full joint federal and state investigation after describing the events as incredibly disturbing. President Donald Trump accuses the mayor of Minneapolis and Governor Walz of inciting an insurrection. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda formally welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to Vilnius on Sunday, ahead of official commemorations marking the 1863 uprising in Lithuania against the Russian Empire. The visit underscores the growing political and diplomatic ties between the two countries amid ongoing regional security concerns. The two leaders held bilateral talks focused on strengthening cooperation in areas such as security, energy, and economic development, as well as supporting Ukraine in its ongoing conflict with Russia. Lithuania has been among the most vocal European supporters of Ukraine, providing military assistance, humanitarian aid, and Zelensky's visit comes amid intensified diplomatic engagement with European partners and is expected to include meetings with Lithuanian lawmakers, civil society representatives, and Ukrainian diaspora organizations in Lithuania. Iraq has tightened security along its border with Syria, stepping up intelligence and military measures to counter the risk of an Islamic State resurgence, after reports that around 200 low-level Islamic State suspects escaped from Syria's Shaddadi prison this week. The heightened alert follows a rapid shift in control inside Syria, where government forces have taken over prisons previously guarded by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, holding thousands of Islamic State fighters. While Syrian government forces say many escaped suspects were recaptured, Iraqi officials say that the incident underscores the continued risk posed by instability across the border. Along the front line, Iraqi border troops say that the threat has strengthened their resolve as they work around the clock to reassure the public that the border remains secure. With regional security at stake, Iraq's border forces are expected to remain on high alert in the months ahead. A Pakistani court has jailed a prominent rights activist and her husband for 10 years over anti-state social media posts. Iman Mazari, a 32-year-old lawyer and vocal critic of Pakistan's military, disseminated highly offensive content on her X account, according to an Islamabad court. A court statement said Mazari and her husband, fellow lawyer Hadi Ali Chatta, will have to remain in jail for 10 years. They were handed prison terms on 3 charges, including cyber terrorism and intentional dissemination of false and fake information to run concurrently, as per court documents. Changes to the constitution and hasty legislation passed by Parliament have pushed Pakistan towards tighter state control, with diminishing political and civil rights. Time again for another breather. We shall be back with updates from international front. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World Primetime News. US President Donald Trump has threatened to slap a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if the country strikes a trade deal with China. Trump on Truth Social said if Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. It is unclear what deal Trump is referring to in his social media post. Last week, Canada's Prime Minister Carney announced a strategic partnership with China and agreed to reduce tariffs. At the time, Trump called the move a good thing. But tensions between the US and Canada have grown in recent days after Carney said in a speech in Davos that the US-led world order had been ruptured. Carney also urged other middle powers to band together in the face of economic coercion by greater powers, though he did not mention Trump by name. The US President also withdrew an invitation for Canada to join his new Board of Peace. Chinese electric vehicle makers are charging ahead with bold targets for 2026, even as signs of fatigue emerge in the home market. With domestic demand slowing and competition intensifying, many are turning to consumers overseas to sustain growth, aided by a recent easing of trade tensions between China and the European Union. Last week's breakthrough agreement between Beijing and Brussels to introduce a price floor on Chinese-made EVs, which will replace EU-imposed tariffs of up to 35%, is also offering exporters a timely reprieve. Chinese EV manufacturers are racing to differentiate themselves on the global stage through innovation, from artificial intelligence and autonomous driving to even flying cars. Globally, Chinese EV makers are reshaping the industry. Last year, Chinese brands dominated global EV sales, with BYD overtaking American EV maker Tesla for the top spot for the first time. India, driven by soaring electricity demand and a push to reduce reliance on China, is rapidly producing solar panels, fueling a booming yet uncertain market. In recent years, New Delhi has rolled out a series of policy measures to encourage local production, including production-linked incentive or PLI schemes, higher import duties on foreign-made solar equipment, and preferential treatment for domestically manufactured panels and government-backed projects. Driven by strong economic growth, rising urbanization, and expanding industrial activity, India's power consumption has been climbing steadily, putting pressure on the government to secure reliable and affordable energy supplies. However, the rapid expansion also brings significant challenges. Despite rising capacity, many Indian manufacturers still depend on imported raw materials and equipment, particularly for high-efficiency solar cells, leaving parts of the supply chain vulnerable to global price swings and trade disruptions. At the same time, intense competition, thin margins, and fluctuating government policies have raised concerns about the long-term financial sustainability of some producers. Time now for the sports update. Nepal will face Scotland in the decisive final match of the ICC Women's T20 World Cup Global Qualifiers, being held tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Tribhuvan University Cricket Ground in Kirtipur. Nepal enters the game under pressure, having won only one of its 3 group matches, while Scotland, ranked 11th in the world, has already played in a World Cup and is 10 places above Nepal in the T20 rankings. In a practice match before the tournament, Nepal lost to Scotland by 27 runs, highlighting the challenge ahead. A win is crucial for Nepal to keep its hopes of advancing alive, but the result alone may not suffice, as the team will also need favourable outcomes from other matches. A loss to Scotland would see Nepal eliminated, with Scotland and Thailand advancing to the next stage, while the Netherlands have already secured the spot. Tomorrow's clash promises to be a tense and pivotal moment for Nepali women's cricket. Spain's tennis sensation Carlos Alcaraz has stormed into the quarterfinals of the Australian Open, defeating American 19th seed Tommy Paul in straight sets. The 22-year-old world number one praised recent improvements to his serve, calling it an important weapon in his serene run at the Melbourne Park. With this win, Alcaraz reaches his 14th Grand Slam quarterfinal, surpassing legends Bjorn Borg and Boris Becker for the most before turning 23 in the Open era. Despite being broken in the opening game, Alcaraz recovered to win 7-6, 6-4, 7-5, showcasing a strong first serve percentage of 70% across the match. He will next face Australia's 6th seed Alex de Minaur, who cruised past Kazakhstan's Alexander Bublik in a highly anticipated clash that could mark Alcaraz's first semi-final in Melbourne. The Spaniard's blend of youthful energy and tactical maturity continues to make him one of the tennis players' most exciting players on the global stage. We are almost at the end of the Primetime Bulletin, but before we wind up, here's a look into our top stories once again. Nepal concludes National Assembly elections with 95.7% voter turnout across all provinces. Thousands of Nepalis protest over EPS job delays as 2023 roster nears expiry. Diplomatic talks underway. Nepal's primary stock market sees a significant rally, with benchmark index rising by double digits. Myanmar election concludes with pro-military party poised for landslide victory amid critics' concerns. U.S. federal immigration agents shoot dead 37-year-old Alex Pretty in Minneapolis. And Nepal women facing Scotland in decisive T20 qualifier tomorrow. Hopes of World Cup progress at stake. That is all for the moment here on NTV World Primetime News. Our next bulletin will be at 2200 hours Nepal time. Do join us through our social media and get the latest news and updates from our official website at nepaltelevision.com. I'm Vijata Bhandari. Thank you for watching. Have a great evening ahead.
Welcome to the studios of NTV World in Kathmandu. Public Service Broadcasting PSB Nepal's new initiative to make Nepal more visible and audible to the global audience. Welcome on board.
This is NTV World, facts that speak, insights that matter.
Telling the stories of a changing planet. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Exploring the heartbeat of Nepali creativity. This is NTV World.
The power of story shaped by technology. NTV World.
Unearthing Nepal's hidden heritage. Discovering the timeless Nepal.
Telling stories that endure across centuries, where culture breathes, stories bloom.
When the world moves, we make a sense of it. NTV World.
Taste of Nepal. Every recipe, every flavor tells the story.
Journalism in the digital age. Fast, focused, verified.
Stories hold power. Stories reflecting life. Stories of the hinterlands. Reporting for NTV World.
This is NTV World. Welcome to News Hour.
This is NTV World. Welcome to Primetime News.
One story at a time.
Crossing borders, connecting voices, where Nepal meets the world in dialogue. This is NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Voices that connect Nepal to the world, bringing perspective, region and relevance to every story. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Stand by. Mic is on.
3, 2, 1, cue.
We are NTV World.
$35 of us are in this bus that is transporting us to the aircraft from the waiting lounge of the Trivandrum International Airport's domestic terminal. All, of course, look busy, up to something. The bus starts to move, and within minutes we reach the aircraft at the taxi bay. We start boarding the aircraft one by one, to the warm welcome of the air hostess. The aircraft looks fully boarded for the flight to Chandragarhi Airport of Jhapa. However, our final destination is the famous Pathivara temple in Taplejung district. After nearly an hour's flight, we land at Chandragarhi Airport, trying to breathe fresh air and adjust ourselves. Our camera crew takes the opportunity to capture some unique local artifacts seen at the airport. As we wait for our vehicle outside, we have time to see the local lifestyle. Soon our vehicle arrives and we set for our main destination, Pathivara of Taplejung. Within 15 minutes, we reach Charali, a major junction with Kakarveta towards the east, Ilam towards the north. We're trying to engage in the sights and sounds of the Tarai. We head north towards Ilam, a natural paradise known for its agro-producers. The sheer pleasure of traveling in this natural paradise, crossing through settlements and jungles along the hilly road, reaches its climax when we arrive at the famous tea garden of Kanyam. No wonder Kanyam, our tourist hub with a perfect blend of natural beauty and economic activities, attracts us like a magnet. But our destination is still far away. We have to reach Taplejung at any cost today. After another 1.5 hours, we arrive at district headquarters of Ilam. It's a weekend day, Saturday, and the main market area is quiet. The very short time we spent enjoying the beauty of Ilam Bazaar was not enough, but we had to move on. It was almost dusk when we reached the highest point along the Mechi Highway, Rake Bazaar, along the border of Ilam and Pasthar districts. A beautiful small hamlet known for its local producers. Rake is pretty windy, maybe because of its height, and we all feel a bit cold. However, this does not stop us from enjoying the local specialities. Our team moves on knowing that if we do not reach Taplejung today itself, our entire itinerary will suffer. It's dark now, and we are still on the roads, still at some distance. We cross the Fidim Bazaar, district headquarters of Pasthar, but cannot see it properly as it was already dark. However, how can one forget the beautiful Fidim Bazaar and its red soil? Our caravan moves on irrespective of the time, and we are determined to reach Taplejung today at any cost. It was 11 p.m. when we reached Phungling Bazaar, the district headquarters of Taplejung. Early in the morning, the next day, once again we start our journey to the revered shrine. We were aware that a regional fair was taking place in Taplejung. The bazaar area has been decorated like a bride. There seems to be a competition among the locals in every nooks and corners of the city to decorate their place as the best. A large fair is going on at the open field with numerous cultural pageantries. The whole area is scenic and lively. However, we left Phungling Bazaar early with a promise to enjoy the place when we return from Pathivara. After nearly an hour's ride along the gravelled road, we arrive at Kafle Pati. This is the last destination till which we can have a ride. Now all on foot till we reach Pathivara. We are exploring Kafle Pati and the beautiful hill of Manavara. Behind Pathivara, in the early morning sunlight. That hill is called Manavara, meaning a filled mano, or an ancient device to weigh grains, for its sheer resemblance. It looks a difficult place to reach. Thankfully, we have no intention of going there either. A few travelers apart from our team are also with us. The uphill climb for about 5 hours is waiting for us now. Long winding steps of rock lead us to the temple. The uphill walk of the stairs takes more than half an hour to reach Baldana. It's a small hamlet and resting place for travelers. We meet a group of youths who are returning from the temple. These jolly youths with guitar seem to have enjoyed a very musical trip to the temple. We also enjoy their music for some time. One of the many ways to forget our fatigue. After the brief musical break, our journey moves on. We haven't seen snow till now, but meet plenty of devotees already returning from the temple. Either they had left for the temple pretty early in the morning, or they must have stayed at Tulufedi, which is near the temple itself. The symmetrical steps and the rhododendron trees awaiting spring. Away from the hustle and bustle and pollution of the town, Pathivara is a serene and virgin destination. We try to listen to the experience of some of the devotees despite our fatigue. In a short while, we reach Tulufedi, the last bazaar and major human settlement before we reach Pathivara temple. Many travelers lodge at this place that also has a few hotels. For the first time, we see light rain and a bit of snow at this altitude. This beautiful bazaar has its own beauty as well as sorrow. This is a small trade center and lodging place for travelers.
अब कोही जापा, कोही काठमाडौँ, कोही अब उता अमेरिका, कोही त्यस्तै युकेहरू अब यतै नेपालको मान्छे नि हो आउने त.
त्यसरी आउनुहुन्छ.
हजुर.
तपाईले टेन्ट पनि राख्नु भएको छ नि हैन?
टेन्ट राख्नु भयो. टेन्ट अब रुम हाम्रो थोरै छ, त्यही भएर टेन्ट राखेको हो. टेन्टमा पनि यसो सुतम भनेर.
After a warm cup of tea in the cold weather, we resume our uphill walk to the temple. We see a huge copper gate made of all the copper utensils offered at the temple. Whoever are the lucky ones to have their offerings in the gate, it definitely welcomes the devotees first. A few meters away comes the temple of Kanchi Mata, or the youngest mother. Kanchi Mata is believed to be the youngest sister of Pathivara deity. We stop for some time at the temple, heavily covered by snow. Probably the most adventurous journey in the whole trek begins from here in the snow-white jungle. The trees have bloomed in white snow. The path is covered by snow, and the travelers of all age group marching ahead with equal enthusiasm. Every traveler is carrying something to eat like roasted corn, grams and ginger to minimize the risk of altitude sickness, as the uphill walk leads to higher elevation. Chances of losing foot grip in the snow are very high without a walking stick. Walking sticks are provided free of cost by the hotels, given that you promise to return them. The people here are very helpful. Despite the stony steps to climb, they are fully covered in snow. We continue our enjoyable journey forward, sometimes losing our foot grip and trying to forget our fatigue. It took us around 4 hours to reach the temple premises. The gate welcomes us a bit ahead. There are a few structures built here for those who want to make an overnight stop. Only the structures offer shelter, and the travelers have to manage the rest themselves. These hanging bells welcome as we enter the temple premises through the main gate. Inside the temple premises, one feels as if this is the capital of a pristine natural paradise. We start capturing the temple and its surroundings in our camera. It is Sunday, and maybe because of the snow fact as well, we do not see many people in the temple. Otherwise, even the security personnel deployed here struggle to manage the throng of devotees, especially on Saturdays. The idol of deity Parthivara has been kept under the open sky due to the belief that it cannot be kept inside any structure. Divine, amazing, and attractive temple of deity Parthivara. The legend of the deity is really impressive. Even small natural artifacts, otherwise not notable, create great impressions in our memory during trips like this. How can we be ignorant to the fact that health and fitness is of paramount importance during such trips? So we take some rest in a nearby place and start munching the roasted corn so as not to keep our stomachs empty. Hunger can easily lead to altitude sickness at such elevation. People offer copper utensils including oil-fed lamps, credence, with the belief that their wishes would be fulfilled. We also noticed devotees offering prayers at the never-extinguished flame at the temple. There is a huge cliff at the backside of the idol and big plain area towards the front side. The temples of other gods and goddesses in the premises look as if a divine army is guarding the deity. Popular belief is that paying homage at the temple fulfills all wishes, including children, peace, or prosperity. Sadly, we were deprived of the opportunity to enjoy the natural beauty of the surrounding due to inclement weather. However, we thoroughly enjoyed the snowfall. Every devotee seems happy and content for being able to pay homage here.
एकदमै राम्रो रहेछ तर बाटो चाहिँ अलि चिप्लो चिप्लो रहेछ हिउँ परेको कारणले तर राम्रै लाग्यो एकदम जोस रमाइलो रहेछ
यहाँ आउन चाहिँ मलाई धेरै वर्षदेखि मन थियो बट कहिले सोचेको थिएन कि म यहाँ आउन सक्छु आज आउने मौका पायो सारै खुसी लागेछ
अद्भुत अनुभव भएको छ मलाई र आज मैले यो लगभग 4-5 घण्टाको जो यात्रा हामी तलबाट गरेका छौं हुन त हिउँ पनि परिरहेछ हिउँ परेको थियो हिउँ परे हुनाले अलिकति सम्लेर आयौं हामी तर अत्यन्त नै त्यस्तो केही छैन बाटोमा एउटा राम्रो तरिकाको एउटा अनुभव भएर हामी पुग्यौं माताको दर्शन भयो
It's really an ill attempt to travel to Parthivara during winter as the whole area gets blanketed by snow. But only those who dare know the sheer pleasure. It cannot be expressed in words. Apart from the question that how the place would look without snow, nothing can be as pleasing as reaching there in winter. Just for reference, this is how it looks without snow.
Heaven above and angels below. This is the essence of Ruby Valley. Nestled in the northern part of Nepal's Dhading district, Ruby Valley is a hidden jewel surrounded on all sides by majestic mountain ranges. The landscape here is a feast for the eyes. White rhododendron blossoms paint the hillsides and sprawling rice fields shimmer under the sunlight. At about 300 kilometers from Kathmandu, the valley is a serene retreat, rich in culture, tradition, and natural beauty. Reaching Ruby Valley involves a remarkable trek that starts with a scenic journey from Kathmandu through Nuwakot and Rasuwa, winding towards the base of Ganesh Himal, the towering peak that watches over this land. The trek leads through dense pine and oak forests, terraced farmlands, and vibrant local villages like Tipling, home to the Tamang community. These people live in harmony with nature, cultivating crops and raising livestock while keeping their rich traditions alive, welcoming visitors with warm hospitality and cultural performances. The striking Pangsang Pass at 3,800 meters marks a stunning milestone on the route, offering panoramic views of the green-clad hills and distant Himalayan ranges. Below, forests of tall sal trees stand as silent guardians. As travelers traverse this landscape, they witness local women harvesting crops, hear the heartfelt songs sung by villagers in the fields, and feel the essence of a life deeply connected to the land. The daily sight of Ganesh Himal inspires awe and a sense of peace that visitors carry with them. Ruby Valley lies in the heart of the Himalayas, surrounded by some of Nepal's most famous mountain ranges, Manaslu, Annapurna, Langtang, and Ganesh Himal itself. This geographic embrace creates breathtaking scenery at every turn. Yak caravans and mule trains add a touch of timeless charm to the trekking experience, enhancing the rustic beauty of this remote land. The village of Chalis, nestled in the lap of Ganesh Himal, is a cultural crossroads for the Gurung community. Visitors witness their unique traditions, hear their folk songs by evening fires, and enjoy their vibrant dances, which invite travelers to connect on a deeper level. The journey continues beyond the villages to sacred sites like Tatopani Kunda, where natural hot springs offer spiritual purification and healing waters believed to renew body and soul. From there, hikers embark on a challenging yet rewarding trek to the holy Ganesh Kunda, a glacial pond named after Lord Ganesh. This pristine water body mirrors the majestic peaks around it, creating an ethereal panorama that captivates all those who visit. With peaks ascending over 7,400 meters, Ganesh Himal stands as a guardian of this sacred valley. Ruby Valley is more than a destination. It is an invitation to experience Nepal's untouched nature, vibrant cultures, and spiritual heritage all in one journey. For those seeking a unique adventure off the beaten path, Ruby Valley offers an unparalleled blend of breathtaking landscapes, warm hospitality, and rich traditions that make it one of Nepal's top destinations for international and domestic travelers.
Welcome to Declassified Beyond the Brief. I am Devendra Subedi. Well, in this episode, we try to discuss contemporary political state of the country following the Gen Z movement. We will try to discuss the party dynamics in the days to come, political fluidity in the country, and also the opportunities it brings and the future that lies ahead of the country. Let's welcome Vishnu Sapkota, an academician and political analyst. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sapkota.
Thank you.
It would be good to start with your, let's say, assessment of the recent political changes that the country, which I prefer to call it unprecedented. How do you see it?
Thank you for inviting me. So I agree with the word unprecedented because this has been unprecedented. Nepal has, of course, seen a lot of political movements, but not of the like that we saw in September, popularly known as Gen Z protest. As we know, there have been multiple narratives in terms of how to define the Gen Z protest, what is it? Exactly. And this is all political. So there are political forces who want to delegitimize it, who want to dismiss it as saying it was nothing, it was just like a fluke of 2 days. And there are many others, I think more sensible in my assessment, who are trying to understand the underlying meaning of what that is. So I think the Gen Z protest, to me, okay, there were those who called for the protest, there were those who were martyrs, there were those who participated. So it's a variety of group, but I think on the whole, it was the Nepali society, largely, that was desperate for a change. So the message of the Gen Z protest, for me, or how it should be understood, is that whatever is going around has been done in the last 10 years or 20 years, it's not good. Things need to change. The political actors and the state of the state that has been there, it's not good. It needs to change. So it was just an explosion of that frustration that was brewing from many years. Normally when there is a protest or movement, there is an organized force and then, they have a political vision. But because Gen Z protest was spontaneous, and it was a spontaneous mix of people, mostly youth, of course they didn't think about, okay, they will topple the government, the Prime Minister will have to flee for his life, and then, the interim government and the dissolution of the parliament. They didn't envisage any of this. So that means they didn't have any political vision. So, and then everything that has happened was like what was possible to do, like the formation of the current government. I think it's now 100 days of the government out of the mandate of 180 days, and Sushila Karki was not prepared to be the Prime Minister, so it was thrust upon her. So in terms of how do we read the current political situation is what followed from the Gen Z protest, the political parties and forces, and within those parties, there are forces that think that election is the only way out, which I think is the most sensible way to go forward. And there are some who are hoping that elections will be postponed or derailed, and then, it's natural in any vibrant society, there are multiple forces. So it's a fluid. To summarize this, I think we're in a politically fluid and sensitive state. If we don't get to the election as per the mandate of this government, if there is something untoward that takes place, I think also we are in a very volatile situation.
Rather than calling it unstable, fluid, can we call it a time of recalibration?
I think this is also an opportunity. Opportunity in the sense that, we are yet to see the outcome of the Gen Z protest. The interim government and the elections are only means. They are instruments to get to that outcome, to the process of that outcome. So if we don't get to a better state, then it would be a complete, disrespect.
Waste of even human life.
Yeah, life and disrespect.
Sacrifice.
Disrespect to the
martyrs.
Exactly. Disrespect to the spirit of the Gen Z protest. So I think we're in that state where a lot can happen. There is a big potential for change. We cannot be assured about the change, but there is a good space to get into that phase where things really change.
Earlier in your assessment said this was a spontaneous protest. How sure, given the incidents that happened on the next day of the protest or the popular uprising, we can say that it was really spontaneous, and then there was no organized sort of planned things on the second day of the protest.
Of course, the second day was the violence, the destruction had shocked the society. I was shocked myself. I was not in the country that time, but it was shocking to observe what was going on. Nepali society, I think, is still struggling to process, to understand. Again, there are different theories and conspiracy theories in terms of what happened. So nobody was happy about, of course, the violence. But what is important is when we look at the Gen Z protest, what is important is first to understand the meaning, the message of the first day, but also to have a proper investigation of those who committed all those crimes, the violence, on the second day. I think as a protest, the second day was a reaction. How it started was as a reaction, but everything that happened was not reaction. And then Gen Z protest leaders, those known leaders, they have said they were not there. So that means there were definitely other elements. So I think what's important is to bring them to justice. I really hope that the commission that has been formed under Justice Karki will come up with the proper, credible investigation and recommendation, and that the government will take action. This government and the future government, so that the Nepali society, for future, that there will be no impunity
in the society.
I think that's equally important.
As you said, 100 days gone, 80 days left. The mandate, March 5 election, almost there. How realistic is it?
It's an important question, and I'm taking a pause because I want to, of course, answer in an honest way. When it was announced, when the president gave this mandate of 6 months, I think that was the most sensible thing to do, 6 months, because historically in Nepal, whenever when a parliament is dissolved or the government announces new election, the 6 months time has been the standard historically. So from that point of view, and also because the parliament was dissolved, I think also from the spirit of constitution also, within 6 months. So that makes perfect sense. But again, it was not a normal time when the elections were announced for 6 months. With the political chaos and the shock in the society and the uncertainty and just following that unprecedented scale of violence, there was a lot of skepticism about whether elections will take place in March, in the first month of the government formation. In the first few days, there was more skepticism, but then it's going down. So when I look at it, today, I see more political buy-in for the election. The good thing is about the big parties in the dissolved parliament. Nepali Congress has officially and with clarity said that election is the only political way forward, and they're fully committed. That's good. Even the UML, the second largest party in the last parliament, and the other political parties. So, which is good. But again, I think what we should take into account is the fact that there are political forces who are not prepared. The old big political parties fear that they will not do well in the election.
Are they just buying time here under different pretexts, or they will try to do that?
They are trying to do that. So I would like to say two things. One is, realistically, if all major political forces come on board and think that, okay, instead of March 5th, okay, let's postpone by a month, let's get to, a little warmer weather.
Will that be a disaster if that happens, or March 5 is something that we have to adhere to and have the election at any cost?
It won't be a disaster. But the government unilaterally, one is they don't have the mandate. It has to come through the president. But even the president and the government, they should not do it unilaterally. They should have the political parties on board, because in the political parties, there are people who are pro-election. I mean, pro-election means per March. But if everybody comes on board and they think that it is more practical to postpone for a few weeks.
How hopeful are you, Dr. Sapura, about this?
I think they will get to that point, because
they will have to get to that point.
They will have to get to that point. I think sense will prevail. What I'm not suggesting is that they have to postpone. My point is, if they have to postpone, if there are some logistic aspects for the election commission, the political parties, they think there are other reasons, and if all of them come on board together to request for that, I think it's not a disaster just to postpone by a month or 1.5 months. That's one. But the thing is, as the election comes close and the election campaigns start and they get vibrant, only thing I'm hoping is that there will be no violence, there will be no aggressive confrontations among the parties. So I think what's important, even among the Gen Z groups and those who are influential at Gen Z, I think it's important for them to realize that it is also their responsibility to create an environment for the election. Because doing election is in the interest of every citizen of the country. Their political parties, they have their own interest. I think that's always a reality in any country, and even in our case, there are political forces who think that if they can postpone election, they will benefit. Because right now there is still the heat of the Gen Z protest and the spirit is there, and then the old parties may be punished in the election. So it's natural for those interest groups in the parties to try to. That's why it's important for the Gen Z representatives also to contribute to creating an environment and avoid the extreme rhetorical language in the public.
Every 10 years or so, the country all of a sudden becomes bloodthirsty. The system somewhere goes wrong. And if we look at our recent history for the last 30, 40 years, major changes every 10, 12 years, they do not last longer than that. And the people have to again come to the streets, and we have seen a lot of sacrifices, including those of human life. Why? What is wrong in our system?
I don't know. Again, this is a serious question, and this is something I think a lot about. And there may not be one answer. There may be many, but just I would like to share one or two thoughts quickly that I think maybe one is in the last 20, 30 years. The whole world is connected, and it's a cliche to say it's like a global village, and with internet and everything, so Nepali society has seen everything that is going on in the world. And when they look back and think about their own situation, things should have been better. That's number one. Number two, politically, our political parties, they have been capable to do political campaigns to establish democracy or re-establish democracy when it's snatched. But in terms of governance, they have failed. Failed to deliver, yeah. And what is more important here is that because I've worked in Southeast Asia and traveled to other countries, and I compare Nepal with some other countries, not the most developed in that not the most developed, just with countries that are comparable, that were like Nepal just 20, 30 years ago. So when I look at their government, the members in the cabinet, the prime minister or the president and the ministers, they know their TOR. In case of Nepal, except for the political rhetorics and the ideologies and the big jargons from long time ago, I do not see the ministers who know their job technically. So in terms of governance, I think Nepal, where we have really not done well is in terms of public service delivery. Nepal is really lagging behind even compared to the countries which were like Nepal just 20, 30 years ago. So the frustration of Nepali public, especially the youth, for example, when we're having this chat, if you go to any government office where the public have to go to pay tax, to get a driving license, for land registration and to pay any kind of government offices, it's just the idea that you have to go frustrates people. And there has not been much improvement at all. And this has not been on the agenda also. So we've always been used to talking about these big political, ideological things and all that. Of course, it's important to have a political clarity and a vision, but in terms of governance, there are those basic things where our political class in the last 20, 30 years have completely failed, And if the old parties, old leadership, if they will come back again, the same thing will perpetuate. So I think in terms of your question, now to summarize, people's frustration is in terms of Nepal not having a sound economic policy and not being assured that we are on a good track, number one. Employment generation, number two. Public service delivery, number three. And the public accountability and the rampant corruption, which is actually related to this weak public
failure of all the things connected by. So there's not one particular factor that we can pinpoint at.
I think so.
But my question, if I can ask you again, is it the individuals that were wrong or the system that the Constitution has set, the form of governance, that has to be revised?
No, I think the form of government as a format is not a problem.
The federal setup, the number of parliaments, the federal parliaments, and then the proportional system of representation. Because for the last, again, the same 30 years period, if we go back, hardly there has been one or two government that had the full majority from the people's mandate. So is it only the individuals who, let's say, bore the brunt of the latest movement as well, or the system that the Constitution has envisaged, it has to be revised?
This is a political question. I'm of course happy to share my view because I've been sharing it in the past also public. That I think the federalism, we should not forget the context where Nepal had to go federal. It was again a result of a political movement. Of course, as a form of governance, whether federalism, the federal structure is good or not, we can debate. And if we look at these nearly 200 countries in the world, there have been all types of governance. That's not, I think, the main issue. What's happened in Nepal in case of federal restructuring is that the Nepali Congress and the UML had to accept the federal structure. But
they had to. Exactly.
They didn't have a political will to implement it. So
to accommodate the other force that was coming from a, let's say, warring background.
Exactly. So that is why the political parties and the Nepali civil service, the Kathmandu-based senior officials also were not happy to devolve power. So you have the major political parties who are running the government in Kathmandu from Singadarbar, and then the senior bureaucrats who are not happy to devolve power. They tried everything not to devolve power in the last several years. So on the one hand, you don't give power, you don't make laws from the parliament to empower the provinces, and on the other, you criticize, the same people criticize that, look, it's been expensive, and no. I think it was a complete dishonesty, betrayal by the big political forces and the civil service, the senior bureaucrats. In terms of the format, of course, I'm not saying that federalism is the only best model. It's one of the models. Since we had to get into that, what the political parties should have done their best was to implement it honestly. They did not. So, if we look at how the provinces have been doing in the past few years, not very well. But it's because of the reason I just mentioned. So, I think in terms of delivering, but I think just one point quickly is that the local government bodies, because relatively they have better power, they are more empowered, they are doing well. Out of 753, like some are really doing well. They are good examples.
Thriving.
Yeah, thriving. Yeah.
Now, in this discourse, everything that you have been saying that connects to the political parties and the leaders who are the decision makers. Where are the people in this discourse? Were the people asked? Why were the people not, let's say, people's mandate taken when this system was set up? If I ask this question at this point of time, can we maybe discuss on this one, or this could be an opportunity to ask the people on this system?
No, this is a sad story. Your question itself has an answer in a way. So this is a sad story.
Probably somewhere my bias is coming out.
No, this is a sad story in terms of how the political parties have failed to represent, have not been able to represent the public.
They have failed to be the representative chosen by the people.
Exactly. So when you have elections and they're elected, yes, technically they represent people, but no, but it's the elections. How the political party base is the on the top. You have a set of leaders who have captured, the party's power, and then how they get elected is by re-electing the same people who are loyal to them at the local level. So, and then for people to choose, it's either this party or that. But basically, there is no difference. I think one important point here, and which may be encouraging, is that in the last election, we saw Rashtriya Swatantra Party.
Exactly. The alternative political forces.
It has had its own issue, but at least as a party, it came to challenge the old and the old parties. Oh, if we continue like this, maybe we'll be ousted soon. I think that message. And Balensa, although he was an independent person to win the mayor, but he defeated the powerful candidates of Nepali Congress and UML, which was a big message. Which was a message. It was not about one individual winning the mayor of Kathmandu. It was about how the old political parties have failed to deliver. So it was a message for all across the nation. And then in the now upcoming elections, and I hope they will take place in time or soon, that I am sure there will be some new political parties. Again, yes. New forces.
Since we are in the democracy, there must be a multi-party-based democracy.
So I think there is this challenge. The old parties, you guys are not doing well, and this cannot go on like this. So the message is there in the society, and the Gen Z protest was the most vocal, the most powerful message for the same. But the question is whether the new ones will be big enough to form a government or to lead the government or to make a real impact, or they will just be a fringe, like the Rashtriya Swatantra Party. Okay, they participated in the government, but they kind of became part of the old system, gradually in those 3 years. So again, we'll have one or two other new parties with 20 seats, 30 seats or 40 seats. Again, they join the government in coalition with the same old parties, and they just become like the old, which will be tragic, which I hope won't be the case. So there is a challenge, but it's not enough.
We move on to the parties, political parties, as you said. Mr. Savkota, if I have to ask you, how do you see the political forces against whom the popular mandate was in the protest, correcting themselves, or as we have always been let's say our memory very short-lived, so are we going to forget all these things and again the country will take the same old course?
Again, this is a very important question. First, you have two sections in your question. Against whom? I think it was against all those that have been there for many years. But it was in favor of hope, something new. So what is going around should change. So it was not in favor of anyone, it was against almost everyone. That's how I read. But in terms of your second part of the question, that whether there is something to hope, or again it will be lost, in transition, and then in another 5-10 years, another movement of protest. That's something I think one is something I think a lot about. But I think we have a really good space to hope at the moment. The old party, when I say old, especially the Nepali Congress and the UML and the Maoist, they have now merged and formed another party, Nepali Communist Party. Let's say those three. Even for Rasopa, the relatively new one, I think they're all second up. Look, we thought we were so important, but if you look at the message on the street and talk to the Gen Zs at home or relatives, then we're not respected by the society. We've lost faith. We do not represent them. We win elections, but we do not represent them. We win elections, but we are not legitimate in the eyes of the people. That message, I think it has shaken up, the party's base, internal base. So I see that, the desperateness that they are undergoing, which is very good. They deserve that, that desperate feeling.
I immediately want to ask you this question again as you are saying this. The recent 11th Congress of CP and UML, did you see that, what you said? They were desperate, as you said. Yeah. Did you see that desperation in this UML to change itself or do the course correction?
You caught me in the right spot. And I saw them desperate to defend that they were still right. and they were desperate not to acknowledge, not to recognize the Gen Z protest. So, but I think the message is still loud. You know, if you look at their body language, they are desperate. But they are trying their best not to show that they are desperate, that we're still relevant. That's what they're trying to convey. But I think the message is written large. You know,
the writing is on the wall now.
It's on the wall now. I think you know, people are not just going to believe in what, you know, the rhetoric.
Same old rhetoric, same old promises, unfulfilled promises, delivery always the same, and plight of human resource always carries on. Now, is the burden of expectation too heavy to the interim government led by Susila?
Yes, too heavy. So also unrealistic. Actually, politically, I'm a defender of this government. I mean, nothing individual, nothing personal, but as a citizen, I have defended this government from day one.
But how long?
Yeah. No, okay. They have a finite mandate to conduct elections, and also to form the commission which they have formed, and the commission is working. They have a 1 month extension now. I think they're doing well in terms of their work. So, but for the public, you know, there was such a massive Gen Z protest, and the deaths, and then the violence. And then when you have a new government and new election, is this all? Was the whole thing just for this? So there is this innocent expectation from the public, from youth and from everyone. So I respect that expectation, but that's not realistic. Because this government, one is they were not elected to come to this government with a political vision and all that. It was an accident of history, and in that heat of the moment, Susila Karki happened to be the Prime Minister. Not that she was prepared to be a Prime Minister. And the other cabinet members, they were just picked up, like people who had certain credibility in the society were picked up. So the cabinet members' mandate comes through the mandate of Susila Karki. Susila Karki's mandate comes through the whole situation, you know, that evolved. Now, there is, to your question, there is a lot of burden to this government, but I think they should have a really fine balance in terms of doing something against corruption, empowering the institutions that are already there, the commissions that are there, and then, but at the same time, not lose focus on their core mandate of going for the election.
Mr. Safkota, this brings me to another question. On one side, we have the desperate, let's say, youths who want change, immediate delivery. Everything should be changed, overnight change, expectation. On the other side, we have the seasoned campaigners of democracy who know the tricks and trades of polling, election, and then parliaments and everything. And on the threshold is a retired Chief Justice.
Yeah.
How do you think she is going to, let's say, give this country a solution in this condition?
Yeah, no, she has had a really challenging job as Prime Minister. So on the one hand, you have the political parties who are questioning her legitimacy. On the other, she has to deliver on her mandate. So it's a challenge. So I think she was chosen to be the Prime Minister based on the right instincts she had, and her integrity, and her identity as an anti-corruption crusader, even when she was a judge or Chief Justice and after she retired. So it's the integrity. So that is her only strength, that integrity. So I think, and of course, the president has full trust in her, although the president is constitutional. And in the political parties, there are sensible people who know that it is important to empower her for their own interest, and to keep the country on track, and to not let the constitution derail further. So I think, of course, as Prime Minister, it is her responsibility, but I would like to emphasize that it is also the responsibility of the political parties and the Gen Z representatives to empower this government, not to question. Of course, this government is interim, and its mandate is finite and narrow. It doesn't mean that they can do, bad things. If they appoint people which are bad, or if they just do things which is not in their mandate, there should be question. I'm not saying that this government, we should not question anything at all. But my point is, when they're doing well, for the mandate, to deliver the mandate, it is everybody's responsibility to also empower this government, not to question.
So you mean to say that let's give this government a chance, and as you said, within the constitution, the only amicable way out at this point of time is the election. And even if the election, let's say, the date, let's say we revise the date, given that everybody comes on board, that is acceptable to you. Am I right if I say that?
Yeah, you are right. So what I said is, in terms of the postponement of the date, if something is really impractical, if they need a few weeks, say a month, for like logistic reasons, the election commission needs, and the political parties, oh no, because of whatever reason, if they all come on board and request the government, so it should come through the political parties. The government should not decide to postpone, but the political parties, if they request collectively, it's not a disaster to postpone for a month. I mean, that's my point.
So how hopeful are you about the future of this country, given all these things that we have discussed in the show so far? At the earliest.
Yeah, it sounds like a cliche. I'm very cautious when I get optimistic. What I'm optimistic is about, you know, I would like to talk about the first day of Gen Z protest. You know, the youth who say, okay, it's too much and we're not just going to stay silent. And they committed themselves to intervene and take the country back in their hand. Look, this country belongs to me as much as it belongs to KP Oli, Sherbadu Deva, Pushpa Kamal Dal. That was the message of Gen Z protest. This country belongs to me. It doesn't belong to those who say they did a lot of sacrifice in the past and then went to the prison and did this political movement or that movement. Okay, if you did that, that's okay. But currently, this country belongs to every citizen equally. So the Gen Z protest, the spirit was to take back the country in the hand of where it should belong. So I think that spirit, it is evidence that if the same old style of governance will come back after the election, that's not going to sustain. I think that message is established clearly. That is where I see hope.
Overhauling the parties and also the system, let's say bureaucracy, for example. Would you only blame the political parties and the corrupt leaders for this mismanagement of the country, or do you think even our bureaucracy somewhere needs to be reassembled, reshaped, or at least made aware of these things?
It's both. Again, the first responsibility lies with the political parties. Say you have a prime minister who lets his minister take commissions because they need money for the parties. You know, they say the money that goes to the party is for the country. That's how they've been, understanding. So everything starts at the political level, the political vision, and the honesty and the will, and also a program to improve or up-to-date the bureaucracy. What I'm trying to say is that the first responsibility is with the political parties, but there is a serious problem in Nepal's bureaucracy, civil service. You know, in terms of public, even right from the time they recruit people and the public service delivery, the competence, there is a serious problem. But the point is, it should start politically. And, it's the parliament which has to make laws.
So if there is the willpower among the political parties and basically the leaders of those parties, things will automatically improve. That's what you mean to say?
It will be gradual, but things will definitely improve. Now, let's talk about why there is...
Does that apply to our interim prime minister right now?
Even for the given period they have, yes, it does. The thing is, for example, okay, you have a road and the road is not constructed well, then it doesn't last long, right? It's because, okay, there is commission. So who are the people working there? It's the bureaucrats, it's the technocrats, engineers, and the people like civil service members. But then the problem starts from the political level, from where, how the contracts are awarded on that. So it's all mixed. But the bureaucrats, they're not just going to say that like we're corrupt and we're incompetent and we're part of the system, we'll change. No, they will not say that. Who should do that? The politics. So in the election, I would at least like to see that in the coming election that some political parties at least have a clear vision in terms of how to improve Nepal's civil service. Look, everybody knows the problem. Everyone knows there is corruption. And in which public offices, what kind of, it's a public knowledge. But in terms of how to control, there is no program. And the political parties, they don't come up with that. So at least because of Gen Z protest again, I think in the upcoming election, some political parties will have this as a prominent agenda.
In the next 3 years, where exactly do you see this Gen Z movement? Will there be a rise of another alternative force in this country?
I think what I can say from in my reading, what I can say with confidence is that the whoever will be elected and will come to lead the government will be constantly watched by the youth, by the society.
The earlier indifferent youth are now no more indifferent.
Yes. Some of these, like those who were active in the recent months, may be busy elsewhere, but there will be new ones. So the message is clearly established that, every citizen will be watching for accountability, and it's not going to just go on as it did in the past.
Is there a risk of this Gen Z that is pretty loose and unorganized disintegrating in this political, let's say, quagmire? I'd love to say this because it's a mess for their level of understanding.
That's true. And again, like they were like spontaneous, individuals and small groups of people who are known as Gen Z, right? Those representative faces that we see. Some of them are really sensitive, and then I think they are also empowering others around them. So it doesn't have to be the same individuals who will be always there, constantly watching and questioning, if something goes wrong, but also defending when things are going right. So my point is, the new election and whoever will be elected, and the way the citizenry will watch the performance of that government, of the parliament, the incompetent previous parliaments, and what kind of people will come, how they will perform. I think everything will be watched much more closely, and they will
scrutinized.
So I think in terms of accountability, I think we'll get to a different, better level. I think that will be one outcome of the Gen Z protest.
My last question to you, Mr. Safkota. Instill hope in general public like me that this country will be transformed into an oasis in the next 5 years or 10 years, please.
No, I think we have a wonderful opportunity to get into that path of transformation, and the Gen Zs have laid that path. And the active intervention of the youth shows that Nepali society is vibrant. The status quo cannot just continue for long. So I think the where I find hope, where I feel optimistic, is that our society is vibrant. It doesn't tolerate the status quo. Okay, that's why the message. Whoever gets the message, they will improve, reform. If not, there will always be new alternatives that will come up. So I hope in the coming election that we'll see a new parliament, where there are new faces, more young people, and new parties, and even from the old parties, there will be new leadership. I think from there, again, we should not expect that again in 5 years or 10 years, like Nepal will be like a rich, prosperous country and everything. At least if we are on a right track, if there is national confidence, and the youth of this country feel that they have future in this country, I think that would be something I would feel good about. And I think we have a good reason to believe that this is possible.
Thank you so much for your time, thought, and sharing with us at NTV World Declassified. Thank you so much, Mr. Safkota.
Thank you. Yeah, lovely talking with you.
We just tried to declassify Nepali political discourse at this point of time. Lot of questions, so much of uncertainty, but still a lot of hope, according to a seasoned political analyst, Mr. Vishnu Safkota. Thank you so much for being part of this episode of Declassified. Until next time, from me, Devendra Subedi, goodbye.
Inside the quiet courtyard of Baber Mahal, colors seem to breathe on their own. This is Siddharth Art Gallery, home to some of Nepal's most defining contemporary art movements. Today, the gallery opens its doors to Mithila Cosmos, a universe imagined through the brush of artist S.C. Suman, a name inseparable from the evolution of gallery space.
म आफ्नो बच्चैदेखि हजुरआमालाई हेर्दै थिएँ भित्तामा उहाँ कोर्नुहुन्थ्यो अब भित्तामा कोर्दै जाँदाखेरि उहाँलाई हेर्दै आएँ र त्यसपछि म बच्चै बालकालदेखि नै स्कुल जाँदा अनि फुलहरू हेर्दा मलाई हजुरआमाले पेन्टिङ गर्नुहुन्छ त्यसमा रङ बनाउनुहुन्छ भनेर म उहाँको लागि बाटोमा खसेका फुलहरू ल्याएर उहाँलाई दिन्थेँ र उहाँलाई भन्थे कि ल यसबाट पनि रङ बनाउनुस् यसबाट पनि पेन्टिङ गर्नुस् अनि यो कुरा मलाई एकदम सहजै प्र्याक्टिसमा आएको जस्तो लाग्यो र उहाँको पछि उहाँ भित्ताहरू रङाउँदाखेरि पेन्टिङहरू गर्दाखेरि म उहाँलाई छोडेर कतै जाँदैनथेँ र मलाई पनि काम गर्न दिनुहोस् भनेर उहाँ कहिले काहीँ दिक पनि मान्नुहुन्थ्यो कति मलाई माने यो डिस्टर्ब गरेको तिमी जाऊ खेल भनेर त्यही पनि म उहाँसँग बस्थेँ अब उहाँले त्यही पनि उहाँको म बसिरहन्थेँ उहाँले चाहिँ साइडमा कुनै कुनामा एउटा सानो चित्र बनाइदिनुहुन्थ्यो र यसमा तिमी रङ भर भन्नुहुन्थ्यो अनि म छिटो रङ भर्थेँ अनि उहाँले आश्चर्य भन्नुहुन्थ्यो हेर कति मभन्दा पनि राम्रो रङ भर्दो रहेछ भनेर अनि यसरी मलाई चाहिँ मिथिला पेन्टिङले नजिक ल्यायो र म त्यो फेरि त्यो गर्न थालेँ.
What we see today is not just an exhibition, it is a lived memory of culture, philosophy, and the changing world around us.
यसरी प्रत्येक घटनासँग जोडिँदै आएर एक्जिबिसन आएको हो र 2021 मा मिथिला कस्मस द साइकल अफ टाइम आयो त्यसपछि त्यो 22 मा सक्यो 22 को जनवरीमा सक्यो र त्यसपछि अहिले आएर यो 25 मा यो एक्जिबिसन आयो त्यो बीचको जुन अब फेरि यसलाई कसरी जोड्ने त अब जस्तो कि नेपाल एकाडेमी अफ फाइन आर्ट्समा म काउन्सिल मेम्बर हुँदाखेरि मैले आफ्नो देशको लोककलाहरूलाई हेर्न पाएँ म लोककला विभाग प्रमुख थिएँ हैन अनि त्यो हेर्दै जाँदाखेरि म पूर्वदेखि पश्चिमसम्म उत्तरदेखि दक्षिणसम्मका त्यो जिल्लाहरू भ्रमण गरेँ आफ्ना हाम्रा लोककलाहरूलाई हेरेँ हाम्रो भनिन्छ हाम्रो देशमा 123 126 वटा भाषा बोलिन्छ त्यसका आफ्ना संस्कृति छन् आफ्ना चाहिँ रीतिथिति छन् त्यसभित्रका कलाहरू मैले हेर्न पाएँ र त्यो सबैलेलाई जोड्दै जाँदाखेरि एउटा आर्टिस्टले कसरी त्यो प्रभावित पार्दो रहेछ र त्यो स्टुडियोमा काम गर्दाखेरि त्यो एलिमेन्टहरू हेर्नु र त्यो एलिमेन्टलाई आफ्नो पेन्टिङमा चाहिँ समावेश गर्नु यो सहज रूपमा त्यो हुँदै जान्छ र यो सो ल्याउँदाखेरि चाहिँ तलको तल्लामा हामी चाहिँ हेर्छौँ क्यानभास वर्कहरू छ त्यसमा देवी कथा छन् गीताका सार छन् जीवनका त्यो कथाहरू छन् र त्यसमाथिमा आउँदाखेरि उपत्यकाका कथा छन् त्यसपछि जनकपुरको रामायण र अयोध्याको कथाहरू छ रामायणसँग जोडिएको कथा छ त्यसपछि बौद्ध कथाहरू आएका छन् त्यो सिरिजहरूलाई कसरी एक ठाउँमा हामी कसरी विभिन्न जाति समुदायहरू एउटा साझा फुलबाडी हो त्यसभित्रका संस्कृतिका कुराहरू त्यसभित्रका कुराहरू मैले ल्याउँदाखेरि मलाई त्यो आफैसँग आफूलाई परिचय गराउनु जस्तो र त्यो मैले कलाको माध्यमबाट बुझेर म यो कुरालाई म आफ्ना नयाँ पुस्ताहरूसम्म पनि यो चाहिँ यसरी हो हाम्रो देश यो मिथिला पेन्टिङ भनेको एउटा समुदाय क्षेत्र समुदायको विशेषको पेन्टिङ हैन यो नेपाली आर्ट हो यदि मिथिला पेन्टिङको नेपाली कलाको कुरा गरे भने मिथिला पेन्टिङलाई छोडेर त्यो नेपाली आर्ट पुरा हुँदैन भनेर मेरो बुझाइमा मैले यसरी यो एक्जिबिसनले ल्याएको.
Mithila art carries centuries of tradition from Janakpur, from mythological narratives and wedding symbols to intricate floral motifs that speak of life, devotion, and identity. The power of Mithila painting lies in its detail. Every line, every border, every color has a purpose.
के हुन्छ कलाकारले जब घुम्छ ऊ चाहिँ ट्राभल गर्छ चाहे त्यो देश विदेशको यात्रा होस् चाहे आफ्नो विषयवस्तु खोजी हिँड्छ उसले अनुकरण गर्ने क्षमता मलाई लाग्छ उसँग धेरै हुन्छ उसको दिमागमा त्यो कुराहरू आइरहेको हुन्छ क्या त्यो आइरहेको र त्यो कतै न कतै कुनामा बसिरहेको हुन्छ अब जब स्टुडियोमा बिस्तारै काम गर्दै जाँदाखेरि एउटा आर्टवर्कसँग करिब करिब 1 सप्ताह उसले बिताउँछ चाहे 15 दिनसम्म बिताउँछ त्यो विषयवस्तु र त्यसका त्यो फ्रेम अब्जेक्टहरूमा बिताउँछ र त्यसमा चाहिँ त्यसको दिमाग त खाली हुँदैन, ऊ सोचिरहन्छ र सोचेर त्यो बिताएका क्षणहरूमा उसले चाहिँ आफ्नो कलाहरूमा त्यसलाई चाहिँ प्रस्कृत गर्दै जान्छ र त्यो अनुभव बटुलेका चिजहरूलाई उसले चाहिँ त्यतिखेर सम्झँदै उसले चाहिँ केही सम्झना आउँछ र केही नयाँ चिज ल्याउँछ। पहिलो एक्जिबिसनहरू गर्दाखेरि त्यो छडिएको हुन्थ्यो, जस्तै विभिन्न पेन्टिङहरूलाई ल्याएर एकै ठाउँमा गएर त्यसमा एक्जिबिसन गरिएको जस्तो हुन्थ्यो। त्यसपछि के भयो भने मेरो पहिलो मिथिला सोलो एक्जिबिसनको टाइटल पनि म्याथली आर्ट थियो। त्यसपछि म्याथली आर्ट लिभिङ ट्रेडिसन भनेर आयो। त्यसरी जबसम्म त्यो म्याच्योर हुँदै जान्छ कलाकारले 1-2 स्टेपहरू हुन्छन् त्यो एक्जिबिसनहरूको, त्यसले अनुभव पनि बटुल्छ र बटुल्दै जाँदा भ्युवर्सहरूसँग भेट्छ, जर्नलिस्टहरू भेट्छ, क्रिटिक्सहरूसँग भेट्दै जाँदाखेरि त्यसको निखार आउँदै जान्छ, साधनाको निखार आउँदै जान्छ र त्यो चाहिँ विषयवस्तुसँग जोडिँदै जान्छ र आज आएर यो फ्रेममा चाहिँ हामी हेर्न पाउँछौँ।
Art becomes complete only when someone responds to it. In this gallery, every viewer sees something different. A memory, a symbol, a question, a reminder. What do the visitors find in this universe of Mithila?
Well, as an academician, I feel that Mithila painting is like a healing process to people. And this exhibition has expressed itself in a very beautiful way, expressing each and every motive which is present over here related to not only mythology, but also related to emotions of the people. And it is like a story work over here. The entire journey of Mithila has been depicted over here, which speaks volumes not only about the artist, but also about each and every object which has been portrayed over here.
Walking through these halls feels like traveling between timelines. The ancient and the modern coexist. Tradition is not frozen in the past. It evolves through those who carry it forward.
We feel like connected to Sumanji's works because he takes approach that's quite respectful, quite engaging and contemplative, and someone who speaks with contemplation, someone who prefers to remain in a discipline and work from the frame of that discipline. He had chosen the Mithila paintings framework, and he remains in that framework, and he stretches, expands the framework, and develops narrative power, descriptive power, that communicative power with that frame. And that's something amazing.
It may appear abstract at first glance, but spend a moment longer and stories begin to unfold of gods and goddesses, rituals and seasons, and the subtle emotions of everyday life. And within this rich visual grammar, Suman adds his own world, shaped by places he has lived, moments he has witnessed, and the history that surrounds him.
He was among the first generation artists of Mithila art. When he started his career from the kind of humble background he was in, with that financial background, very few people could actually make art and Mithila art in particular their primary career. So that is what separates him from other artists in that regard. However, I will also admit that a lot of other artists have also put in their contribution in the upliftment of Mithila art, and Mithila art has grown due to the collective effort of a lot of people.
From Vivaha Panchami in Janakpur to the lotus of Bodhanath, from the cosmic churn of Samudra Manthan to the silence of COVID lockdowns, Suman brings time onto canvas. His lines become memory, his colors become testimony.
Yeah, there are many favorites, you can see that. If you see that, there are, each painting says some story. Like this is the, if you see this, here the wedding, Sita, Mata Sita wedding with the Ram. There's the procession going on, And every painting you will see that there are the nature. The Suman painting is the nature he captures very nicely. The color combination you will find very rare artist. That type of eye-catching is that one. Many things are within the one paintings.
Mithila Cosmos reminds us that art is not only what we see, it is what we feel, return to, and carry within ourselves.
I have grown in a Mithila household. I've been very closely connected to the Mithila culture. I have been seeing Mr. Suman's exhibitions since a long time, and this is one of the third or fourth exhibition of his that I've been attending. So yeah, that I obviously know about what kind of paintings he does and what time does he conducts his exhibitions. So this is exactly how I found that he was going to do an exhibition this year as well.
Has a similar sort of providing blessing sort of artwork in the form of like a lakudwa, which like exists in a door frame. So what he's done in that specific piece is behind a lakudwa is a cobra painting, so like a wedding specific painting. So he's combined these two cultures as part of his, and it's part of his own narrative because he moved from Janakpur to Nepal, so that's what he was trying to convey, the mixing of these two cultures. So yeah, I think the mixing and, you know, like venturing out of your own home place, which is very common these days, and traveling and seeing the world, I think that's, I think the contemporary connection.
Behind every exhibition is a vision that guides how artworks converse with space and audience. Curator Sangeeta Thapa has been a key voice in shaping Nepal's modern and contemporary art landscape.
His first exhibition, Mithila Cosmos, began in 2007, and what we have been seeing is that he is really celebrating the art forms of the Mithila world, along with the myths and legends of the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and this is something that we see all throughout the different editions of the Mithila Cosmos journey that he has with the Siddharth Art Gallery. This is his 7th show, and we decided to call it Journey of a Pilgrim because the piety in the exhibition is very apparent, and his knowledge of the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, the myths and legends that we have grown up listening to and learning about, you know, become central to his work. But Sumanji is also talking not only about Mithila art, he's from the Tarai, so he brings in elements from Tharu, Dusad, Salish, different forms of art form from indigenous communities in the Tarai, and he amalgamates it and he really makes it his own. Perhaps the most significant work in this show is called Samudra Manthan, and if you know, this is a story which has been visually narrated by so many artists, from Raja Ravi Varma to early 19th century engravings, but he has, you know, even amalgamated a Hakusai wave into this art form. So that is a really famous painting, The Wave, and you can see that influence has permeated his wave, his painting. Sumanjiko themes are not only religious. So whether it is the eco-anxiety that we all feel at present, the destruction of Nisgar forest or the Chure hills, and he amalgamates all of that. During COVID, he had a specific work which he, you know, asked the question, why were bats blamed for spreading COVID in the world? I mean, was the virus man-made? His belief in nature, the natural cosmology of the world is something that you will see over and over again in his paintings.
As visitors step out, the colors remain, in imagination, in reflection, and perhaps in rediscovering where heritage meets the present.
The first three-way peace talks between Russia, Ukraine and the United States held in Abu Dhabi have ended with no apparent breakthrough as fighting rages. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky raised the possibility of a second meeting as early as next week, while an American official said a new round would begin on 1st of February. The two-day talks ended after fresh waves of Russian airstrikes targeted Ukraine's badly damaged energy infrastructure, killing one person and injuring 35 others, according to Ukrainian officials. Russia accused Ukraine of attacking an ambulance in Ukrainian territory under its control, killing 3 medics. Later, it reported a Ukrainian missile attack on energy infrastructure in Belgorod. The talks in Abu Dhabi were the first trilateral meeting since the Kremlin launched its full-scale invasion of its neighbor in February 2022. According to news reports, all sides have agreed to report back to their capitals and coordinate further steps with their leaders. The decision to hold further talks is a good sign, and a lot of work have been done over the past 2 days of negotiations, according to Ukrainian officials. The Russian state news agency RIA Novosti reported that Moscow remained open to a continuation of dialogue with Ukraine and the US. Voting has been held in dozens of constituencies across Myanmar in the third and final phase of its military-run election. The military places the month-long election will return power to the people, but democracy advocates say the ballot is stacked with military allies. The month-long election has been organized by the military government that seized power in a 2021 coup, which overthrew the elected civilian administration and plunged the country into ongoing conflict and instability. Opposition groups and international observers have strongly criticized the process, arguing that the ballot is neither free nor fair. Many say the election has been tightly controlled by the military, with political parties linked to the military dominating the race, while major opposition groups have been banned or forced to boycott the vote. Several prominent political leaders remain detained or in exile. Western governments and rights groups have previously warned that they would not recognize the results, citing widespread repression, restrictions on media, and the absence of genuine political competition. As counting begins following the final phase of voting, attention is now focused on how the results will be used by the military and whether the election will have any impact on Myanmar's deepening political and humanitarian crisis. A ceasefire between Syria's military and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces has been extended by 15 more days, officials said, hours after the 4-day truce expired. Syria's defense ministry said that the extension, which began at 11 p.m. on Saturday, aims to support a United States operation to transfer ISIS prisoners from detention facilities previously controlled by the SDF. The announcement spurred relief in Syria, which has been on edge since fighting broke out between the Syrian military and the SDF earlier this month amid a dispute over its integration into the national army. The Syrian military has pushed the SDF out of the city of Aleppo and seized swaths of northern and eastern territory from the force in the past 2 weeks. The advances brought key well fields, hydroelectric dams, and some facilities holding ISIL fighters and affiliated civilians, including Al-Aqtan prison in Raqqa province under government's control. The military was closing in on the last SDF strongholds when President Ahmad al-Sarraj abruptly announced a ceasefire, giving the SDF to lay down arms and come up with a plan to integrate with Syria's army or to resume fighting. Indonesian rescue teams are continuing an urgent search for around 80 people who remain missing after Saturday's deadly landslide that struck the island of Java. The landslide was triggered by hours of heavy rainfall and slammed into several villages in the West Bandung region early on Saturday morning. Tons of mud, rocks, and debris swept through residential areas, burying homes and infrastructure and leaving widespread destruction in its wake. Local officials say many residents were caught off guard as the collapse occurred while people were still asleep. Dozens of survivors were forced to flee their homes and have been relocated to temporary shelters set up by emergency services. Evacuees are receiving food, medical assistance, and basic supplies, while authorities assess the safety of surrounding areas amid concerns that further landslides could occur. Rescue operations has resumed with rescuers using excavators, sniffer dogs, and manual digging in an attempt to locate survivors trapped under the debris. Landslides are common in Indonesia, a country frequently affected by natural disasters due to its mountainous geography and intense seasonal rainfall. Officials have reiterated calls for improved early warning systems and better land use planning to reduce the impact of such disasters on vulnerable communities. A severe winter storm expected to affect more than 200 million Americans had swept across large parts of the United States, bringing heavy rainfall, bitterly cold temperatures, and widespread travel disruption. According to the National Weather Service, regions likely to receive more than a foot of snow stretch from Colorado through the Midwest and into the parts of eastern United States, including West Virginia, New York City, and as far north as Boston. Forecasters warned that some areas could experience blizzard-like conditions with strong winds reducing visibility and creating dangerous whiteout conditions. The storm has already had a major impact on transportation. More than 10,000 flights across the country were cancelled over the weekend as airports struggled with snow-covered runways and staffing challenges. Thousands more flights were delayed, stranding passengers, causing ripple effects across the national air travel network. Several states declared emergencies, allowing officials to mobilize resources more quickly and urging residents to stay off the roads unless it's absolutely necessary. Met agency says the storm system is expected to move eastward, continuing to disrupt daily life in major cities and rural communities alike in the United States. Sri Lankan naval and law enforcement authorities have intercepted 2 multi-day fishing trawlers in deep seas of the southern coast, detaining 11 suspects in connection with a large-scale narcotics trafficking operation. The vessels were intercepted during coordinated patrols in international waters south of the island nation, following actionable intelligence shared between the Sri Lankan police and the Navy's maritime units. Upon boarding and inspection, both fishing trawlers were deemed suspicious and subsequently escorted for detailed examination. Sri Lankan officials have so far recovered over 280 kilograms of narcotics concealed aboard the vessels, with a street value estimated to exceed tens of millions of US dollars. Investigators believe the trawlers were being used as part of a wider regional smuggling network operating across the Indian Ocean, using fishing vessels to evade detection. Forensic teams are now conducting further searches of the boats to determine whether additional contraband or communication equipment was used to coordinate the operation. The suspects have been handed over to the Narcotics Bureau for further questioning as Sri Lanka intensifies efforts to curb maritime drug trafficking through its territorial and international waters. After being out of service for more than 2 years due to the war in Gaza, Al-Quds Hospital's cardiac surgery department has resumed operations, marking a major milestone for the besieged health system. Health officials said the department, along with its specialized medical teams, successfully carried out its first open-heart surgeries since the suspension of services. All of the procedures were reported to have been successful, offering a rare moment of relief and hope for patients in need of advanced cardiac care. The cardiac unit had been forced to shut down amid heavy fighting, damage to medical infrastructure, severe shortages of fuel and electricity, and restrictions on the entry of medical supplies and equipment. During the shutdown, many patients requiring complex heart surgery were left with limited or no access to life-saving treatment, as referrals outside Gaza were often impossible. Health officials also warned that the hospital system remains under severe pressure and that sustained access to medical supplies and support is crucial to keeping such critical services running. The reopening of the cardiac surgery department is seen as an important step toward restoring advanced medical care in Gaza, even as the broader humanitarian and healthcare crises continue to affect millions of residents. Eastern Australia has seen an unusually high number of shark-related incidents in recent days, prompting widespread beach closures and renewed public concern. Experts describe the series of attacks as extraordinary, with 4 separate incidents occurring within 2 days, 3 of them along a 15-kilometer stretch of coastline. The sequence began on 18 January when a 12-year-old boy was critically injured while swimming in Sydney Harbour and later died in hospital. Officials have responded by closing dozens of beaches along the affected areas and increasing patrolling and public warnings. The incidents have sparked calls from some quarters for shark culls, though experts caution against such measures. Marine scientists and public safety officials have urged a focus on understanding sharks' behavior and implementing preventive measures rather than lethal interventions. Factors such as water temperature, prey movements, and human activity in coastal areas are being investigated as potential drivers of the unusual spike in incidents. The series of attacks has intensified public debate over the management of shark-human interactions in Australia, highlighting the ongoing challenge of balancing beach safety with conservation efforts. Thousands of people have flocked to Tokyo's Ueno Zoological Gardens to see the sole remaining giant pandas in Japan for the last time 2 days before they are scheduled to be sent to China. Visitors bade farewell to 4-year-old twins Zhao Zhao and Lei Lei on Sunday. The viewing for people who were selected by lottery in advance and was limited to about 4,400, with around 25 times that figure applying for the chance. Lottery winners took videos and photos of the twins as they munched on bamboo and walked around as usual. A Tokyo resident in her 50s said she was able to see the two adorable pandas eating. She also said she is grateful as the animals have brought a lot of happiness. The panda twins, after arriving at a facility in China's Sichuan province, are scheduled to be shown to the public once their quarantine is over. After they leave, there will be no giant pandas in Japan for the first time since two arrived in 1972 to commemorate the normalization of diplomatic ties between Tokyo and Beijing. An American climber scaled Chinese Taipei's tallest building, Taipei 101, without ropes or safety gear, completing a high-risk ascent that drew hundreds of spectators to the base of the tower and a much larger audience watching via a live Netflix broadcast. The climber, Alex Honnold, is internationally known for his free solo ascents, a style of climbing performed without protective equipment. Honnold completed the ascent without incident, reaching the top of the 508-meter tower to cheers from onlookers below. After finishing the climb, he described the experience as unusually accessible compared with the previous expeditions to remote cliffs and mountains. Taipei 101, once the world's tallest building, remains one of Asia's most recognizable landmarks and is located in the heart of the capital's financial district. Officials said the event was closely monitored to ensure public safety and minimize disruption in the busy area. While fans praised the feat as a remarkable display of skill and composure, safety experts reiterated warnings about the dangers of climbing without protective equipment. Vietnamese filmmakers are increasingly turning to culturally rich stories and national heritage in the Lunar New Year film season, signaling a shift from the traditional dominance of the southern market toward a more geographically and thematically diverse cinematic landscape. Northern filmmakers in particular are focusing on folklore, tradition, and historical narratives, producing films that aim to reflect intimate, culturally distinctive experiences while reinforcing national identity. One such production, The Scent of Pho, has drawn attention for its portrayal of everyday life and family traditions. The film emphasizes memory, daily routines, and the rhythms of city life while integrating traditional Vietnamese cultural elements such as folk singing. Another major release, Mystic Love of Da Tra, draws inspiration from the legend of Chu Dong Tu, one of Vietnam's four immortals. Industry insiders say the trend toward heritage-focused films is reshaping the Lunar New Year market, demonstrating that audiences are increasingly receptive to stories that celebrate national identity, folklore, and traditional values. Filmmakers hope these productions will not only entertain but also strengthen cultural awareness and pride, offering a cinematic experience that is both educational and emotionally resonant.
सदा भवानी दाहिन रे, सदा भवानी दाहिन रे, सिद्ध न करे गणेश।
Tharu, the indigenous community of the Tarai plains of Nepal. The Tharu community settled in the dense forest of Tarai and transformed it into a granary. The Tharu folk literature and folk cultural heritages reflect the prehistoric human civilization to the modern-day Tharu civilization. The traditional houses, clay-made utensils, wooden items, tribal words and use of tantric phrases exemplify it. From Mechi in the east to Mahakali in the west and the inner Tarai region, this community has dense presence. Acknowledging the fact that all Tharus of Nepal are not of the same origin on basis of culture, Dang district is considered as the main place of origin of all Tharus except the Rana Tharus and Kataria Tharu of Kanchanpur district. Western Tarai, though geographically not so big, can be taken as the Tharu Cultural Museum, as more than half of Tharu population of Nepal inhabit in this limited area. Rana Tharu, Kataria Tharu and Dangora Tharu hold a distinct identity in the western Tarai plains. Above this, Dang Valley being the main origin of most of the Tharus, the Tharu culture here has preserved the cultural heritages of the overall Tharus of western Nepal. The malaria eradication program and land reform program run in Nepal attracted other cultural communities of neighboring hills to the western Tarai plains. The Tharus living exclusively and independently with their cultural traditions opted to migrate to Banke, Bardia, Kailali, Kanchanpur and Surkhet Valley, with the increase of an ambience of coexistence with other communities. With the trend of migration rising, the Tharus were reduced to minority in their native land. Nonetheless, they were successful in retaining and conserving their cultural heritage that originated in the soils of Western Plains. The lifelong folk dance, traditions and festivities are the examples of their cultural preservation. The Tharus have successfully kept alive traditional practices, spirit, mutual unity and harmony, which are an eminent part of their lives today as well.
Tharus are the indigenous tribes of this place. We have our own typical cultural norms and values, including our own music and culture. Starting from the monsoon season, Tharus rejoice in their own cultural festivals that have their own traditional music. Agriculture is our main occupation, and we are known as hard-working people. Nepal is very rich in cultural diversity, but Tharu culture has its own uniqueness. I believe preserving Tharu culture could be a boon in developing tourism as well in this region. However, it is very important to preserve and promote Tharu culture, especially among the youths. Proper planning and programs to preserve and promote Tharu culture from the government is a must.
Tharu festivals, culture, traditions and practices are special and significant. As the Tharus were able to retain their traditions, their cultures have become lifelong, which indeed reflects their originality. In the cultural perspective, every month holds significance for the Tharu community. Magh 1st of the Nepali lunar calendar, culturally known as Maghi, is the special day for the Tharus. Maghi is not only a festival for them, it is the beginning of a new fiscal year. A special exhilaration and fervour infuses the homes of every Tharu during the Maghi festival. Mahatwa, or village leader, is elected on this very day in consensus of all sides based on work efficiency, aptitude and capacity. Resolving the problems of the village to the managerial aspects is the responsibility of the Mahatwa. Mahatwa actually is more an organization in a Tharu village than an individual. The village leadership is taken as a higher traditional practice in the Tharu autonomous ruling system.
We normally play the role of a facilitator in mediating whenever there are disputes among people of our community. The Matau, or the local chief, has to take the lead whenever there are accidents like death in our community. Sometimes there are disputes between people of different villages. The Matau needs to take the lead in settling them as well, almost like a judge. On cases of land proportion division to Kamayas or the bonded labourers, people can give their opinion, but the final decision is taken by the Matau. In marriages also, the witness has to be the Matau. Later, if the couple has any problems, the Matau needs to be the one to settle their dispute.
The village senior, or Agua, on the instruction of Mahatwa, asks all the villagers to be present at Mahatwa's residence on the eve of Maghi. Khyala is the village council of Tharus, where every decision is taken in consensus of all sides. Tharus share a close bonding with nature, and their folk life exemplifies this connection. During the Maghi, they reach the jungles to pick the leaves and collect timber before dawn. Some go for fishing, as fish is the speciality of Tharu dishes. The male members of the community come together for preparing pork meat. While the Tharu women get busy in cooking delicious dishes like tikri and making alcohol at home. This kind of cultural activities is not only a necessity, but also a higher degree of practice of unity and teamwork within a village. Magh 1st of Nepali calendar, around mid-January, or the day of Maghi festival. The rays of the sun are yet to fall on earth. The riverbanks are crowded by people taking a holy dip. Songs can be heard playing in the background. Water-filled pots or kalash are placed by villagers on either sides of the road as a gesture of extending greetings, while these footsteps return towards villages from rivers to the tunes of the music. Sprinkling the holy water of kalash, a group of elderly reach the home of Mahatwa to extend greetings and for Maghi assembly. They take a seat after greeting him. Gardhuria, or the households, elect the new leader on this very day. The assembly concludes after reviewing the overall activities of the previous year and chalking out the new plans for the new year. This is followed by feast and dance. Women perform the traditional Tharu dance of Maghauta. Maghi is soon followed by another festival, Hori, that falls on the Nepali month of Fagun around February and March. This festival is celebrated by the Tharus ritualistically. Among the various rituals, the ritual of sparking fire after rubbing timber of Ganyari species reflects their primitiveness. The holy fire is using for lighting ablaze the pole. The fire used for lighting the pole is taken to home by every Gardhurya and kept safely. The same fire is used for cooking the food throughout the year. Fag, that is sung marking this occasion, has lusty lines. In the ancient times, it was called Madan Utsav, or festivity of lust or passion. Hence, the month of Fagun in the Nepali lunar calendar is a wedding month for the Tharus. Following the agreement by the family of the girl and the boy for their marriage, Tekoni, a ritual of give and take, is marked.
ऊपर बद्रीवा तर धरतीवा एक बिट लौटबान नहीं करबे ना नहीं कर
On the wedding day, Diuli Darna, a special ritual is marked at the bridegroom's home. The Mahatwa robes a scarf on his head, which is called Pagya. The groom takes out barchi from his native worship place, Duhar. Taking the barchi is a symbol of war culture for the bride. While heading to the bride's home, the groom is offered sweet delicacies by his neighbors. The groom then sits on a dola, a wooden carrier, and reaches the bride's home. The bride's mother welcomes the groom with kalash on her hands and circumambulates the groom thrice. The sister-in-laws wash the feet of the groom. The wedding guests from the groom's side enjoy the feast. Tears well in the eyes of bride as she is bidden farewell by her family members. The bride is then carried on the dola to the groom's house. Bhojinya sprinkles rice grains on the yard. A pot full of fire is placed in front of the bride and groom. First the groom, then the bride steps on the fire and reach the duhar. Folk belief has it that stepping on the fire by the newlyweds means accepting each other, keeping the god of fire as a witness. The sisters of the groom then take certain amount as a gift and clear the way for the newlyweds. Bhojinya then receives them and collides groom's head with the bride's. Then she asks the bride to oil massage the groom's feet. After the feast, the celebration continues amid singing and dancing, performing traditional chokra and jhumra dance.
The culturally rich Tharu community of Western Nepal is backward in social and economic fronts. The government must come up with concrete programs to promote Tharu culture right from the local level to the international level. This can be a medium for the social and economic upliftment of the Tharu people. We have launched a campaign to preserve the cultural heritages of Tharu community in Dang, Banke, Bardia, Kailali, Kanchanpur and Surkhet districts.
The Nepali month of Chaitra and Baisakh, or the spring season, is the season of going to the jungles for collecting timber and fodder. The men and women together go to the jungles. They sing Sajana Maina Tharu folk songs while picking leaves or collecting timber. The word Sajana comes from the Hindi language and indicates the folk song has a high amount of love and passion, while Maina is the folk song in which the lovers or a girl expresses her inner feelings, symbolizing the bird Maina as a medium.
Sola Jaiga
Among the folk cultural rituals of Tharus, the special ritual of Rath Lausarna and Dhurra Lausarna are considered important and are held by Dharhaya Guruwa for maternal and neonatal health in the Nepali month of Jyeshtha and Kartik. This ritual is one of the Tharu folk treatment methods done through tantric medium. Saptamatrika is worshipped during this ritual. According to nature science, with the change in each season, the favorable and unfavorable effects of the seasonal change are seen in humans, animal, and the entire environment. Among the rituals carried out to protect oneself from those bad effects, Durya Guryai and Harya Guryai carried out annually are considered important worship rituals. After the Dhurya Guryai that is organized in the month of Jyeshtha, the band, musical instruments and dance performances are resumed after concluding Harya Guryai in the month of Bhadra. The main priest, Deshbandhya Guruwa, and his assistant, Keshoka Guruwa, worship the main god and goddesses, Chavaharwa and Dahar Chandi, established in rural religious places, Bhuyarasthan, chanting mantras, wishing for good health and freeing environment of pollution. The Tharus share a close relation with the forest, and as tiger inhabits in the forest, it is worshipped as Bagreshi goddess in Tharu folk culture. The Deshbandhya Guruwa offer eggs as part of the ritual of Bagresi Devi. The Deshbandhya Guruwa reinforces his faith towards rural gods and goddesses by performing fire dance, and he performs this dance through the help of Keshoka Guruwa to awaken the gods and goddesses who are asleep from Durya Guryai. There is a folk belief that the classical tunes of traditional musical instrument madal used during the fire dance eventually chases the evil spirit away. Krishna Ashtami is another significant festival of the Tharus. On this very day, Lord Krishna is worshipped by putting on a huge tika. Thus, the birthday of Lord Krishna is called Astimki. Folk anecdote has it that the Tharu folk artists have this way depicted the story from Stone Age to the Dwapar Age through the paintings. Each painting has its own story. Folk belief has it that the first man of Tharu ethnicity, Gubarba, sitting on the boat, saved himself and his epics by riding on a boat during the end of each age, known as Yug. The images depicted in the painting that are of the evolution stages of fishes, crabs, earthworms, stories of the 5 Pandavas and Draupadi, among others, showcase the Tharu folk cultural history. All in all, This is a painting filled with Tharu folk philosophy. Dasai or the Dasya is the other important festival of the Tharus. The Tharus have a tradition of holding special worships for the deceased ancestors during this festival. The wife of the Mahatwa prepares a special kind of delicacy, dhikri, for offering it as a prasad or offering to the deceased ancestors. The Mahatwa at the worship place of his residence, Dewhar, offer the special delicacies to the deceased ancestors and the clan of gods and goddesses. After offering all these delicacies, the Dewhar room has to be left in silence. The sacrifice of a wax gourd is taken as an alternative to the existing practice of sacrificing since ancient age. Men, women and youths assemble at the residence of Mahatwa in Dasai to receive tika, blessings and exchange greetings. Tharus have a tradition of putting on a white tika, and it is taken as a practice that began when colors were not created and as a symbol of peace. There is a culture of performing Sakhya and Paya dance from Krishnastami to Dasai in the Tharu culture. In the Sakhya dance, the male members playing the madal play the role of Krishna, while the female dancers role play Radha. Therefore, this dance is performed in two forms, Giti along with a song and Agiti without a song. This dance is performed in 22 musical beats. However, these beats are now in the verge of extinction.
Demonstrative art is an integral part of folk Tharu culture. Sakhya and Paiya folk dances performed during Dasai festival are some examples. It is believed that these folk dances have up to 22 different beats. However, today we hardly find musicians and dancers who can play or perform all these 22 different beats. Only limited beats are performed these days. This demands further research and preservation efforts. Likewise, the Tharu folk literature is equally rich in romanticism. They are found in abundance in Tharu folklores and songs.
The main occupation of Tharu is agriculture. They enjoy in the fields and prefer to toil there. They seek the base of their livelihood through agriculture. They are pursuing their life ahead by being close to the nature. The Tharus believe in traditional values, hence believe the Barka dance should be performed if natural disasters occur. The Mahatwa for the same calls village assembly or Khyala. The Barka dance is organized as per the decision of the Khyala. The Barka, that is a folk musical Tharu drama with Tharu folk philosophies, starts with pious steps of various gods and goddesses and concludes with a sequence of Kurukshetra war from the Mahabharata epic and the ascent to heaven. At the end of the dance, the dancers in guise of 5 Pandavas and Draupadi hide their weapons under the Shami tree, which is believed is a depiction of Pandavas going to the Virat kingdom during their incognito stay or the Agyatbas. As per the Tharu folk belief, keeping the akshata used in this dance with oneself will protect one from evil eyes and spirits and helps in curing various illnesses. There is a local belief that touching the bamboo pole that is a symbol of Shiva Lingam or the phallic symbol of Hindu god Shiva relieves oneself from various physical pains. The Tharu culture that is based on self-identity is at present on the verge of extinction. A generation gap is developing between the older and the younger Tharu generation.
Nepal concludes National Assembly elections with 95.7% voter turnout across all provinces. Thousands of Nepalis protest over EPS job delays as 2023 roster nears expiry. Diplomatic talks underway. Nepal CIB arrests 6 travel agency operators for preparing fake rescue documents from mountainous areas. Claims tens of millions of insurance. Over 2,400 new leprosy cases reported in Nepal. Madhya bears highest burden. Myanmar elections concludes with pro-military party poised for landslide victory amid critics' concerns. And Nepal's Erika Gurung sets another international record, reaches final of prestigious WKF Karate Premier League. Good evening, I'm Vijata Bhandari and you're watching NTV World News Hour, coming to you live from Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now the news in detail. Voting for Nepal's National Assembly elections concluded on Wednesday across all 7 provincial capitals, with a turnout of 95.7% among the country's 2011 eligible Electoral College voters. The election was held for 17 of the 18 vacant upper house seats, while 1 seat in Koshi province under the Khas Arya category was filed unopposed by Nepali Congress candidate Sunil Bahadur Thapa. Polling took place at designated provincial venues and involved members of provincial assemblies as well as local government leaders, including mayors and rural municipality heads. The Election Commission said 1,924 votes were cast nationwide and results will be announced following counting at the respective provincial offices. Thousands of Nepalis who cleared all mandatory exams to work in South Korea under the employment permit system have staged fresh protests demanding faster intake as the 2023 job roster nears expiry. More than 103,000 applicants remain on the waiting list, despite limited quotas that allow South Korea to recruit only about 5,300 Nepali workers at a time. With uncertainty growing, the issue has reached diplomatic levels, prompting Nepal's government to explore measures including extended roster validity and holding talks with South Korean authorities. The prolonged delay has intensified frustration among job seekers, turning the EPS process into one of Nepal's most pressing migrant labor challenges. We'll have an in-depth report on this on our issue of the segment later today. The Central Investigation Bureau, CIB of Nepal Police, has arrested 6 travel agency operators involved in creating fake mountain rescue documents and defrauding insurance companies. Among those arrested are operators and managers from Mountain Rescue, Nepal Charter Service, and Everest Experience and Assist, accused of claiming insurance multiple times by listing the same passengers on different flights. CIB Chief Additional Inspector General Manoj Casey said the suspects brought people on regular or charter flights and generated fake bills to claim Carado insurance. Investigations are ongoing into national interest offences, criminal profit crimes, and money laundering linked to the fraud.
एउटा गैर कानुनी रूपमा आर्थिक उपार्जन गर्ने चीजहरु भन्दा पनि यो समग्र पर्यटन क्षेत्रलाई नै अविश्वास हुने अवस्था, पर्यटन उद्योग धराशायी हुने अवस्था र देशको समग्र अर्थतन्त्र नै धक्का लाग्ने अवस्था हुन सक्छ कि भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ सिरियसली देखिने अवस्था बनेको थियो.
Leprosy continues to pose a serious public health challenge in Nepal in 2026, particularly in the Tarai region. Despite the country being declared leprosy-free in 2010, southern districts like Bara, Rautahat and Sarlahi are reporting high numbers, with over 2,400 new cases nationwide in the last fiscal year. Madhya province alone accounts for 37% of all patients, including women and children under 14. Western districts such as Kailali are also showing significant cases, highlighting that the disease is not confined to one region. Health experts warn that social stigma and lack of coordinated government action are the key obstacles, and they call for thorough screening of patients' families and communities to prevent further spread. These trends cast doubt on Nepal's goal of eliminating leprosy by 2030, underscoring the urgent need for renewed public health efforts. We'll look deeper on this later in our bulletin. Moving on, voting concluded in Myanmar's month-long election today, with the dominant pro-military party on course for a landslide victory in a hunter-run poll critics say will not only prolong the army's grip on power. The Southeast Asian nation has a long history of military rule, but the generals took a backseat for a decade of civilian-led reforms. That ended in 2010 military coup when Democratic figurehead Aung San Suu Kyi was detained. Civil war broke out and the country descended into a humanitarian crisis. The election's third and final phase closed after voting took place in dozens of constituencies across the country, just a week shy of the coup's 5-year anniversary. The military pledges the election will return power to the people, but with Aung San Suu Kyi sidelined and her hugely popular party dissolved, democracy advocates say that the ballot is stacked with military allies. Nepali karate player Erika Gurung has made history by reaching the final of the WKF Karate 1 Premier League 2026, one of the sport's most prestigious international competitions currently underway in Turkey. Competing in the women's over 68 kilogram category, Gurung defeated England's Rachel Walters 4-1 in the semi-finals to secure her place in the final. She will now face Kazakhstan's Sofia Bertseva for the gold medal, with a win set to mark a historic first for Nepal at this elite level of global karate competition. Frustration brews as thousands of Nepali workers take to the streets, demanding justice for delayed job opportunities in South Korea under the employment permit system. More on this in our issue of the day. It's time for a short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Time for our Issue of the Day segment. Foreign employment has been the first choice of many Nepali youths. And the Employment Permit System, EPS, a G2G initiative between Nepal and South Korea, has arguably been the most popular. The EPS is favoured for numerous reasons, and more than 70,000 candidates appearing every year for the language test speaks volumes. But delays and uncertainty in the process have now become a growing concern for thousands of aspirants. As youth clamour for early completion of the process once again, Subeksha Rajak tries to explain the EPS program.
The Employment Permit System, or EPS Nepal, is a government-to-government G2G program between Nepal and South Korea. Started in 2008, it opened doors for Nepali citizens to work legally in Korea's industries, mainly manufacturing, agriculture, and more. This program ensures fair recruitment, transparency, and safe migration. Since its beginning, according to the EPS Nepal and the Ministry of Labor's migration reports, around 121,000 Nepali workers have gone to South Korea for employment. Every year, thousands take the Korean language exam known as EPS TOPIK, hoping to secure a better future. Today, EPS Nepal is one of the most trusted foreign employment programs, reducing fraud and empowering Nepali families. The cost of applying for EPS Korea program through EPS Nepal is relatively low compared to private recruitment channels. The main expenses include the EPS TOPIK exam fee around $30 to $40, medical checkup $25 to $35, passport and documentation fees, and the visa fee recently revised about $80 to $90 as of January 2026. Altogether, most applicants spend $150 to $200 before departure, excluding airfare. Step 1 begins with passing the Korean language exams, where around 15 to 20,000 Nepali youth succeed each year. Step 2 is recruitment. Only those within Korea's demand quota of 5,300 every year are selected, and since 2008, more than 121,000 Nepali workers have flown to Korea. Step 3 is employment, with about 17% are Nepali workers currently working in Korea's factories and farms. Finally, Step 4 is returnees. Nearly 50,000 have come back after completing their contracts, mainly investing in businesses and agriculture in Nepal. The program has helped in uplifting the living standards of Nepali families, strengthening Nepal's economy, and building skills for the future. Safe migration, fair employment, and brighter lives. That's the promise of EPS Nepal.
That growing frustration has now spilled onto the streets. Thousands of Nepalis who cleared all mandatory exams to work in South Korea under the Employment Permit System, or EPS, have taken to protest once again. This time they are demanding expedited intake as the job roster from 2023 nears expiry. With limited quotas and rising uncertainty, the issue has now reached diplomatic levels. Sabika Shrestha takes a further look.
Thousands of Nepali job seekers aspiring to work in South Korea under the Employment Permit System (EPS) have once again taken to the streets. The reason is simple. These protesters are the batch of 2023 still awaiting selection, with the likelihood of their roster expiring soon. With the 2-year validity of the EPS roster nearing expiration, frustration and uncertainty have spilled onto the streets of Kathmandu and Lalitpur. More than 103,000 applicants from the 2023 EPS roster are still waiting for placement, despite having cleared the Korean language test, skill assessment, medical examination and police verification. In contrast, South Korea recruits only around 5,300 Nepali workers at a time under the quota system, leaving a large majority stranded and fearful of losing their opportunity altogether.
सबै पीडित साथीहरूको रोस्टर अवधि सकिएकोले गर्दा पहिलो प्राथमिकता भनेको रोस्टर थप गरियोस् पीडितको र जति पनि हामी पीडित छौं यी पीडित विद्यार्थीहरूलाई चाहिँ पहिलो प्राथमिकतामा राखेर कोरिया पठाइयोस् र हाम्रो जति पनि रोजगारदाता समक्ष फाइलहरू पुर्याउन बन्द गरिएको छ यो फाइल त्यहाँ पुर्याउने काम गरियोस्।
Nepal remains one of the largest contributors to South Korea's migrant workforce under EPS, accounting for around 17% of total workers sent. Since the system was introduced 18 years ago, nearly 121,000 Nepali workers have gone to South Korea, primarily under the E9 unskilled visa, working in manufacturing, agriculture, shipbuilding, and related sectors. Monthly earnings typically start at around $2,000 depending on industry and overtime. Explaining the selection process, Director of the EPS Korea Section Nepal, Tikaram Thakal, clarified that Nepal has no role in final recruitment decisions.
After passing the language examination and after passing all the steps, we send them their job application to Korea via online system. Their file is sent to South Korea. Then we cannot do, Nepali side cannot do any more for their assurance in Korea, going Korea for their employment. This depends upon Korean company side, Korean side's company.
As pressure mounted, the government of Nepal acknowledged the concerns and initiated diplomatic and administrative measures. The Ministry of Labor, Employment and Social Security formed an investigation committee last month to explore solutions, including extending the roster validity and resending applicant profiles. A high-level Nepali delegation is also scheduled to visit South Korea next month to hold talks on increasing the current quota. As the deadline for the 2023 roster approaches, the EPS Korea issue has emerged as one of Nepal's most pressing migrant labor challenges, placing growing pressure on both the Nepali and South Korean governments.
Amid the ongoing outrageous protest by the job applicants and the assurance by Nepal government and HRD Korean department still raises a big question. Is Nepal government only trying to find solution for these problems and trying to send migrant workers to abroad, or Nepal is also finding solution to create job opportunities within the home? This is a bigger question that everyone needs to focus on. Sabika Shrestha with camera person Rasila Shrestha reporting for NTV World.
In this context, we asked the protesters why are they protesting again. Let's have a look at what they have to say.
It is well known that the large number of Nepali youth are on the roster after completing the entire process, including language test, skill test. For the purpose of sending worker from Nepal to Korea, our file is not going to Korea employers, so it is our protest.
हाम्रो यो आन्दोलन चाहिँ यो अहिलेसम्म कोरियाले जुन हामीलाई चाहिँ नि हाम्रो चाहिँ नि 100% मा 80% पनि नलगिरहेको अवस्था छ। यो सिभिलनीको एग्रिकल्चरको सम्पूर्ण साथीहरुलाई चाहिँ हाम्रो यहाँ जीरो फाइल बनाइराखेको छ। अहिलेसम्म पनि कसैलाई पनि हामीले एकचोटी पनि कोरियामा फाइल जब एप्लिकेसन उसमा पुगेको छैन।
हामीलाई कोरिया लैजाओस्, हामीले जति दुःख गरेर पास गर्यौं त्यही अनुसार हामीले सफलता प्राप्त गरे अनुसार हामीलाई जान पाइयोस्, गरिबीको दिनहरु फिर्कियोस् भन्ने हामीले सोचेर हामीले पढ्यौं। अब हाम्रो घर परिवारको अलिक सुधार हुन्छ आर्थिक अवस्था भनेर, तर हामीलाई यो अवस्थामा ल्याइयो हैन। यो कुनै पक्षले पनि सुन्या भएन। त्यही भएर हामीलाई अब यो 90% बाँकी छन् रोस्टरमा, त्यो बाँकी जतिलाई चाहिँ हामीलाई थप 2 वर्ष थप गरेर कोरिया लाने प्रक्रिया अगाडि बढाइयोस्।
यो चाहिने माग भन्दा पनि धेरै साथीहरुलाई पास गराएर अहिले सबै यसरी पीडित भएको छ। हाम्रो सुरुमा कोटा आएको 3500 कोटामा अहिले 8000 पास गराएर बाँकी त 6000 लाई फाल्नु थियो भने यसरी किन पास गराएको? हाम्रो भविष्यलाई अन्यल बनाएर
पास गरेर बसेको 2 वर्ष भइसक्यो रोस्टरमा, तर हाम्रो फाइल अहिलेसम्म एचआरडीको कर्मचारीले कोरिया पुर्याइदैन, रोजगारदाताकोमा पुर्याइदैन। त्यो फाइल किन पुगेन? 2 वर्ष बस्दा पनि एकचोटी हाम्रो फाइल पुगेन। कसै साथीहरुको 20-25 चोटी पनि कोरिया रोजगारदाताकोमा फाइल पुग्यो, हाम्रो फाइल एकचोटी पनि पुगेन। जिरोको जिरो। हाम्रो योसँग प्रश्न यति हो कि एचआरडीको कर्मचारीसँग हाम्रो फाइल कोरियामा किन पुर्याएन?
हामी अहिले हैन आज भन्दा 1 साल पहिलादेखि नै यो प्रोसेसमा धेरै पटक लाग्यौं, गभर्नमेन्टलाई धेरै प्रमाणहरु दियौं, धेरै सोर्सेसहरु जुटायौं। हामीले भन्यौं यहाँ तपाईको करप्सन सुरु भयो भन्ने कुरा जानकारी दियौं, उहाँले हामीलाई पत्याउनु भएन।
हामीले यो आन्दोलन निरन्तर गर्नु हामी बाध्य छौं, किनभने हामीलाई पास गराएर पनि
अहिलेसम्म कोरिया जाने ग्यारेन्टी होइन चाहिँ भन्नुहुन्छ, त्यो कुरा हामी मान्छौँ। उहाँको नियमहरू सबै पुरा गरेको छौँ। 2 वर्षसम्म हामी रोस्टरमा बस्यौँ। त्यसमा बस्दाखेरि उहाँको सरकारहरूले उहाँको कम्पनीबाट हाम्रो फाइल छानिनुपर्छ। त्यो सबै नियमहरू हामीले पालना गरेर बसेको हो र अहिलेसम्म कम्पनीमा उहाँ हाम्रो जेरो फाइल गएन। जेरो फाइल रहनु भनेको कम्पनीमा नजानु हो।
हामीले चाहिँ आन्दोलन मेन चाहिँ अब हाम्रो इक्जाम दिएर बसेको मान्छेहरू छौँ हामी, सिबिटी, सिप अनि एग्रिकल्चरको मान्छेहरू, युबिटीको सबैजना। यो चाहिँ हाम्रो 2 वर्ष डेट अवधि हुन्छ हाम्रो रोस्टरको अवधि। यो 2 वर्ष अवधि चाहिँ हाम्रो यतिकै गइसक्यो। हामीले रिमेडिकल गर्नु परेछ, बिचमा यसो झन्झट छ, हामीलाई पैसा तिर्नुपर्छ, टाढाबाट आउनुपर्छ र हाम्रो प्रमुख निकायको एचआरडीको मान्छेहरू चाहिँ हाम्रो सुनवाई भएको छैन हैन।
जति पनि नियम कानुन पुरा गरेर हामीले पढ्यौँ, मेहनत गर्यौँ हैन, अनि त्यसपछि हामीले पास भएर चाहिँ रोस्टर अवधि 2 वर्षको हुन्छ। 2 वर्षसम्म हामी बस्यौँ, तर हाम्रो फाइल चाहिँ कम्पनीमा नजानुको कारण के हो, त्यसको रिजन चाहिँ हामीलाई चाहियो।
यो सरकारले के गर्न खोजेको, एचआरडी प्रमुखलाई पनि अब हामीले वार्तामा बोलाउँदा ऊ इक्जाम चलिरहेछ भनेर आउन पाउँदैन भन्नुहुन्छ। हामीले यत्रो प्रुफ दिएका छौँ। नेपाल सरकारलाई हाम्रो कतिपयको चाहिँ 0, कुनैको चाहिँ 102, कुनैको 56, त्यतिचोटि चाहिँ कम्पनीमा फाइल पुगेको छ, तर हामी 0 किन छौँ? यहाँ कहाँनिर त्रुटि भइरहेछ, त्यो जवाब हामीलाई एचआरडीले दिनुपर्छ।
हाम्रो एग्रिकल्चर र सी बिल्डिङको साथीहरूको चाहिँ हाम्रो रोस्टर अवधि थप हुनुपर्ने छ, किनभने हामी जनसङ्ख्या लगभग 8,000 भन्दा माथि छौँ। हामीमा 0 फाइल अन्त्य हुनुपर्छ। हाम्रो फाइल जसरी कम्पनी पुर्याइदिनुपर्छ। मेन हाम्रो त्यहाँ पुग्नलाई चाहिँ हामीलाई रोस्टर अवधि थप गरिदिनुपर्छ।
जसको मेडिकल गरेर स्किल टेस्ट गरेर पास गरिसकेका साथीहरू 2 वर्षसम्म पनि रोस्टरमा बस्दाखेरि उहाँहरूको रोजगारदाता समक्ष आफ्नो फाइलहरू, आफ्नो कम्पनीमा फाइलहरू नपुगिकनै यसरी रोस्टरबाट आउट हुनुपर्दाखेरि यसरी युवाहरूको चाहिँ 12,000 भन्दा बढी युवाहरूको चाहिँ भविष्य अन्यल भएको कारणले गर्दा आज हामीहरू यसरी चाहिँ आफ्नो मागहरू राख्नको निम्ति यसरी हामी भेला भएको छौँ।
That concludes our Issue of the Day segment. Moving on, leprosy resurges in Nepal with thousands of new cases despite leprosy-free status, sparking urgent concerns over stigma, response gaps, and the race to meet the 2030 elimination goal. More on this in our cover story later. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Now it's time for our cover story segment. Leprosy, once declared eliminated in Nepal, continues to pose a serious public health concern, with the Tarai region reporting a worrying number of new cases. Madhya province alone accounts for more than a third of the country's total patients, raising question about Nepal's target to end the disease by 2030. Amid rising infections, persistent stigma, and gaps in government response, Rojina Rai brings a report.
Leprosy remains a significant public health concern in Nepal as of 2026, primarily in the Tarai districts. Although Nepal was declared leprosy-free in 2010, regions, particularly in the southern plains, continue to report notable prevalence. Madhya province currently has the highest burden of leprosy patients in the country. Among its 8 districts, Bara is the most affected with 137, followed by Rautahad 130 and Sarlahi 128. In the fiscal year 2025-26 alone, 2,409 new leprosy cases were reported nationwide. Out of them, 805 are receiving treatment in Madhya province, representing 37% of all cases in Nepal. The fact is, 378 women in Madhya province are suffering from leprosy. The province also identified 40 patients under 14 years of age who are receiving treatment. A similar trend is observed in Western Nepal. Among the 16 highly affected districts nationwide, Kailali stands out with 117 new cases in the last fiscal year. This raises concern about the government's goal to eliminate leprosy by 2030, as the number of cases appears to be increasing. Health experts emphasize the importance of screening patient, families and neighbors to ensure timely care and prevent further spread.
जिल्लागत हेर्दाखेरि अहिले सबैभन्दा बढी चाहिँ हाम्रो मध्य प्रदेशको चाहिँ 12 जिल्लामा छ र 12 जिल्लाको पनि यसरी हेर्दाखेरि पालिकाहरू गर्दै हेर्दाखेरि हजुरको कोल्बी नगरपालिका, सिमरौनगढ नगरपालिका, पचरौता नगरपालिका.
Two main factors contribute to the rising number of cases: social stigma, which leads patients to hide the disease, and a lack of prompt, coordinated action from the government authorities. Rosina Rai with local correspondent Sanjay Mandala and Dinesh Bista, Nepal.
In other updates of the day, the Ministry of Home Affairs has urged the public and political actors to uphold the dignity and pride of Nepal's national flag amid concerns over its misuse during the public events and election campaigns. In a statement issued on Sunday, the ministry warned that improper use of the flag is a punishable offence under the Nepali law. It clarified that under the Election Code of Conduct 2082, candidates are permitted to use a maximum of 10 national flags during rallies, mass meetings, and other campaign activities. The ministry also stressed that the flag must not be used in ways that defame it or violate the public morality and social decorum. Officials said that the procedures for the use of the national flag and national anthem 2069 remain in force, giving chief district officers the authority to monitor and regulate its proper use. Voting for Nepal's National Assembly elections concluded today across all 7 provincial capitals, with a reported turnout of 95.7% among the country's 2011 eligible Electoral College voters. The election was held for 17 of the 18 vacant upper house seats, while one seat in Koshi province under the Khasarya category was filled unopposed by Nepali Congress candidate Sunil Bahadur Thapa. Voting took place at designated provincial offices and cultural centres, including Biratnagar, Janakpur, Hetauda, Pokhara, Ghorahi, Birendranagar and Dhangari, involving provincial assembly members, mayors, deputy mayors and rural municipality leaders. According to the Election Commission, 1,924 votes were cast nationwide, and results will be announced after counting at the respective provincial offices. The Commission thanked political parties, candidates and stakeholders for ensuring a peaceful and smooth voting process. Today's high turnout reflects both enthusiasm and confidence in Nepal's democratic process as the country prepares to fill key positions in its federal parliament. Nepal now has 45 vacant seats at local and provincial assemblies, following a wave of resignations by officials running for the House of Representatives election. The vacancies include 24 local chiefs and deputy chiefs, 21 provincial assembly members, as well as several national assembly members, including prominent leaders like Narayan Kaji Shrestha and Bamdev Gautam. Key resignations also came from mayors and deputy mayors, including Kathmandu Mayor Balan Shah, Bharatpur Mayor Renu Dahal and Dharan Mayor Harka Sampang Rai. The Election Commission has announced that by-elections will be held immediately after the House of Representatives polls to fill the vacant posts. These resignations follow a broader pattern, with ward chairpersons, ward members and provincial assembly members stepping down to contest federal elections. Nepal has a total of 753 local assemblies and 7 provincial assemblies, highlighting the scale of the electoral reshuffle and the complex election schedule of the country that now it faces. Nepal's Election Commission has inaugurated a joint election operations center to ensure smooth voting across the country. The centre established at the Commission's office was inaugurated by Acting Chief Election Commissioner Ram Prasad Bhandari, who said it will address any election-related issues that cannot be resolved at individual polling stations. The centre will be led by the Commission Secretary and will include senior officials from the Ministry of Home Affairs, Nepal Army, Nepal Police, Armed Police Force and the National Investigation Department. Its primary role is to provide immediate solutions to the problems arising in any constituency during the elections. Acting Chief Commissioner Bhandari emphasized that the centre will strengthen coordination among security agencies and the election officials. The initiative reflects Nepal's efforts to ensure transparency, efficiency and security during this electoral process. Nepal's Prime Minister Sushila Karki has called for tackling the country's problems, anomalies and corruption through mutual cooperation and coordination. Speaking at the first convocation ceremony of Nepal Open University, Prime Minister Karki urged the graduating students to contribute to nation building by supporting employment generation and promoting production-oriented education.
प्रविधिको द्रुत रूपमा भएको विकासलाई समायोजन गर्दै अगाडि बढ्नुको विकल्प छैन। हाम्रा उच्च शिक्षा प्रदायक संस्थाहरू सबै अझै गतिशील हुन जरुरी छ। यस खुला विश्वविद्यालयले यो समयको गति र प्रवाहलाई आत्मसात गर्दै विश्वव्यापी ज्ञान र रैखाने ज्ञानलाई समावेश गरी शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापलाई सञ्चालन गर्न सकोस्।
Nepal Stock Exchange, or NEPSE, which is Nepal's primary stock market, saw a significant rally today, with the benchmark index rising by 57.55 points or 2.12% to reach 2,772.17. Trading activity was robust as nearly 39.9 million shares of 331 companies were exchanged in 133,529 transactions, generating a total turnover of approximately $105 million. All sectoral sub-indices, including finance, hydropower and manufacturing, recorded gains, while 8 companies hit positive circuit, marking the maximum allowable daily increase in share price. Leading the trading volume was Akhukola Hydropower Company Limited, with shares worth over 435 million rupees changing hands, reflecting strong investor interest in Nepal's growing energy sector. The upward trend indicates renewed optimism in Nepal's equity market, which plays a key role in financing the country's infrastructure and its economic development. Gold prices in Nepal hit record highs today, reflecting rising global demand and market trends. The price of 1 tola, approximately 11.66 grams of hallmark gold, rose by 2,400 rupees to reach 303,800 rupees, while silver increased by 290 rupees per tola to 6,480 rupees, according to the Federation of Nepal Gold and Silver Dealers Association. Compared to last Friday, gold was trading at 301,400 rupees and silver at 6,190 rupees per tola. On the international market, an ounce of gold is currently valued at $4,987, while silver is trading at around $103 per ounce. This surge in gold and silver prices has significant implications for Nepali consumers, dwellers and investors, highlighting the country's sensitivity to international market trends. Time now for international updates, but before that, let's have a quick look into the headlines once again. Nepal concludes National Assembly elections with 95.7% voter turnout across all provinces. Thousands of Nepalis protest over EPS job delays as 2023 roster nears expiry. Diplomatic talks underway. Nepal's CIB arrests 6 travel agency operators for preparing fake rescue documents from mountainous areas, claim tens of millions of insurance. Over 2,400 new leprosy cases reported in Nepal, Madhya bears highest burden. Myanmar elections concludes with pro-military party poised for landslide victory amid critics' concerns. And Nepal's Erika Gurung sets another international record, reaches final of prestigious WKF Karate Premier League. U.S. federal immigration officers have shot and killed a man in Minneapolis, identified by local officials as 37-year-old Alex Pretty. The incident comes less than 3 weeks after Renee Good was shot dead by an immigration agent in the city. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says agents fired defensive shots after Pretty reacted violently, while Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says the account of events from federal authorities is nonsense and lies. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy calls for a full joint federal and state investigation after describing the events as incredibly disturbing. President Donald Trump accuses the mayor of Minneapolis and Governor Walz of inciting an insurrection. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda formally welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to Vilnius on Sunday, ahead of official commemorations marking the 1863 uprising in Lithuania against the Russian Empire. The visit underscores the growing political and diplomatic ties between the two countries amid ongoing regional security concerns. The two leaders held bilateral talks focused on strengthening cooperation in areas such as security, energy, and economic development, as well as supporting Ukraine in its ongoing conflict with Russia. Lithuania has been among the most vocal European supporters of Ukraine, providing military assistance, humanitarian aid, and Zelensky's visit comes amid intensified diplomatic engagement with the European partners and is expected to include meetings with Lithuanian lawmakers, civil society representatives, and Ukrainian diaspora organizations in Lithuania. Iraq has tightened security along its border with Syria, stepping up intelligence and military measures to counter the risk of an Islamic State resurgence, after reports that around 200 low-level Islamic State suspects escaped from Syria's Shaddadi prison this week. The heightened alert follows a rapid shift in control inside Syria, where government forces have taken over prisons previously guarded by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, holding thousands of Islamic State fighters. While Syrian government forces say many escaped suspects were recaptured, Iraqi officials say that the incident underscores the continued risk posed by instability across the border. Along the front line, Iraqi border troops say the threat has strengthened their resolve as they work around the clock to reassure the public that the border remains secure. With regional security at stake, Iraq's border forces are expected to remain on high alert in the months ahead. A Pakistani court has jailed a prominent rights activist and her husband for 10 years over anti-state social media posts. Iman Mazari, a 32-year-old lawyer and vocal critic of Pakistan's military, disseminated highly offensive content on her X account, according to an Islamabad court. A court statement said Mazari and her husband, fellow lawyer Hadi Ali Chatta, will have to remain in jail for 10 years. They were handed prison terms on 3 charges, including cyber terrorism and intentional dissemination of false and fake information, to run concurrently, as per court documents. Changes to the constitution and hasty legislation passed by Parliament have pushed Pakistan towards tighter state control, with diminishing political and civil rights. Indonesian rescue teams are continuing an urgent search for around 80 people who remain missing after a deadly landslide struck the island of Java, according to the authorities. The landslide was triggered by hours of heavy rainfall and slammed into several villages in the West Bandung region early on Saturday morning. Tons of mud, rocks and debris swept through residential areas, burying homes and infrastructure and leaving widespread destruction in its wake. Local officials said many residents were caught off guard as the collapse occurred while people were still asleep. Dozens of survivors were forced to flee their homes and have been relocated to temporary shelters set up by the emergency services. Evacuees are receiving food, medical assistance and basic supplies, while authorities assess the safety of the surrounding areas amid concerns that further landslides could occur. Rescue operations has resumed with rescuers using excavators, sniffer dogs and manual digging in an attempt to locate survivors trapped under the debris. Landslides are common in Indonesia, an archipelago frequently affected by natural disasters due to its mountainous geography and intense seasonal rainfall. Authorities have reiterated calls for improved early warning systems and better land use planning to reduce the impact of such disasters on the vulnerable communities. Thousands of people have flocked to Tokyo's Ueno Zoological Gardens to see the sole remaining giant pandas in Japan for the last time, 2 days before they are scheduled to be sent to China. Visitors bade farewell to 4-year-old twins Xiao Xiao and Lei Lei on Sunday, the final viewing day before the departure on Tuesday. The viewing for people who were selected by lottery in advance and limited to about 4,400, with around 25 times that figure applying for the chance. Lottery winners took videos and photos of the twins as they munched on bamboo and walked around as usual. A Tokyo resident in her 50s said she was able to see the 2 adorable pandas eating. She also said she is grateful as the animals have brought a lot of happiness. The panda twins, after arriving at a facility in China's Sichuan province, are scheduled to be shown to the public once their quarantine is over. After they leave, there will be no giant pandas in Japan for the first time since 2 arrived in 1972 to commemorate the normalization of diplomatic ties between Tokyo and Beijing. Time now for a short break, but do stay tuned with us as we have more updates from the business and the sports.
US President Donald Trump has threatened to slap a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if the country strikes a trade deal with China. Trump on Truth Social said if Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with a 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. It is unclear what deal Trump is referring to in his social media post. Last week, Canada's Prime Minister Carney announced a strategic partnership with China and agreed to reduce tariffs. At the time, Trump called the move a good thing, but tensions between the US and Canada have grown in recent days after Carney said in a speech in Davos that the US-led world order had been ruptured. Carney also urged other middle powers to band together in the face of economic coercion by greater powers, though he did not mention Trump by name. The US president also withdrew an invitation for Canada to join his new Board of Peace. Chinese electric vehicle makers are changing ahead with bold target for 2026, even as signs of fatigue emerge in their home market. With the domestic demand slowing and competition intensifying, many are turning to consumers overseas to sustain growth, aided by a recent easing of trade tensions between China and the European Union. Last week's breakthrough agreement between Beijing and Brussels to introduce a price floor on Chinese-made EVs, which will replace EU-imposed tariffs of up to 35%, is also offering exporters a timely reprieve. Chinese EV manufacturers are racing to differentiate themselves on the global stage through innovation, from artificial intelligence and autonomous driving to even flying cars. Globally, Chinese EV makers are reshaping the industry. Last year, Chinese brands dominated global EV sales, with BYD overtaking American EV maker Tesla for the top spot for the first time. India, driven by soaring electricity demand and a push to reduce reliance on China, is rapidly producing solar panels, fueling a booming yet uncertain market. In recent years, New Delhi has rolled out a series of policy measures to encourage local production, including production-linked incentive PLI schemes, higher import duties on foreign-made solar equipment, and preferential treatment for domestically manufactured panels in government-backed projects. Driven by strong economic growth, rising urbanization, and expanding industrial activity, India's power consumption has been climbing steadily, putting pressure on the government to secure reliable and affordable energy supplies. However, the rapid expansion also brings significant challenges. Despite rising capacity, many Indian manufacturers still depend on imported raw materials and equipment, particularly for high-efficiency solar cells, leaving parts of the supply chain vulnerable to global price swings and trade disruptions. At the same time, intense competition, thin margins, and fluctuating government policies have raised concerns about the long-term financial sustainability of some producers. Operations of the third phase of the Eastern Container Terminal at Sri Lanka's Colombo harbour officially commenced, marking a significant turning point in the government's program to develop and modernize port infrastructure. With the completion of this stage, construction of 1,090 meters of the terminal's total planned length of 1,300 meters has been finalized. Authorities confirmed that 82% of the remaining project activities have also been completed to date. The opening of the third phase enables the Eastern Container Terminal to handle operations of 3 container vessels, significantly boosting operational capacity. During the past year, more than 500,000 container operations were successfully handled at the Eastern Container Terminal. With the latest expansion now operational, port authorities project that more than 1.5 million container operations will be handled at the terminal this year.
Time now for the sports update. In today's National League action at Dashrath Stadium, the departmental side APF club defeated Sankata club 2-1 with goals from Deep Lama and Yuvraj Khatri. APF continues its unbeaten run in the league. In another match, NRT edged out their opponents thanks to a decisive second-half goal by Ashish Gurung, keeping NRT also unbeaten. Tomorrow, 3 exciting matches are scheduled between Manang Moshangdi Club and Kakri Bihari, Nepal Police Club and Sri Bhagwati Club, and the third between Planning Boys United and Saddobato Youth Club. Time now for the weather update, first from Nepal and then from across the world. almost at the end of the bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's have a look at the top stories that have made it our headlines this hour. Nepal concludes National Assembly elections with 95.7% voter turnout across all provinces. Thousands of Nepalis protest over EPS job delays as 2023 roster nears expiry. Diplomatic talks underway. Nepal CIB arrests 6 travel agency operators for preparing fake rescue documents from mountainous areas, claimed tens of millions of insurance. Over 2,400 new leprosy cases reported in Nepal. Madhesh bears highest burden. Myanmar elections concludes with pro-military party poised for landslide victory amid the critics' concerns. And Nepal's Erika Gurung sets another international record, reaches final of prestigious WKF Karate Premier League. That is all for the moment. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website at nepaltelevision.com. I'm Vijayta Bhandari. Thank you for watching. Good night.